Particularly in the Japanese community, these symbols, they say a whole lot more than just seeing a happy cat. It's going to add color, vibrancy, history, and when you go to an area and you want to know where you're at, where to go, and feel the sense of the history there. And I think that's what the medallions give to Little Tokyo.
3 different images: a cat, a doll, and a Buddhist symbol. Bits of old Japanese folklore aimed at injecting new vibrancy into Little Tokyo as it heads into the future. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The medallions are located mainly along 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Streets, as well as San Pedro Street, Los Angeles Street, and Central Avenue in the Little Tokyo area. Senior citizens from all over Los Angeles were honored recently at the 12th Annual Seniors Celebrating Life Luncheon and Clean Air and Healthy Living Fair. Yana Kay takes us there.
Sharon Wright and her mom Edith are regulars at the Seniors Celebrating Life Luncheon. Edith has been coming to the event from day one, while Sharon has been attending for the last 6 years and says she supports the healthy living message the event promotes.
We want to leave the planet healthy and clean for the next generations to come. And we've done a lot of things, but hopefully we're turning it around to make it better for the youth of tomorrow.
The 12th Annual Seniors Celebrating Life Luncheon and Clean Air and Healthy Living Fair took place at the LA Convention Center and featured a variety of healthy living exhibits that included information on clean energy, air quality, cardio care, water and power usage, and others. Councilmember Jan Perry led the festivities.
People are living longer, people are living healthier, people are interested in information and learning more about what they can do to control their own destiny and the quality of their life.
The Senior Clean Air Fair has grown by leaps and bounds since it first began 12 years ago. The very first fair had 300 seniors. Here at today's event, more than 2,000 seniors are in attendance. 86-year-old actor Dick Van Dyke took to the stage as a special guest speaker, and Councilmember Bernard Parks also came to show his support.
Just becoming a senior doesn't mean that you get to sit down and stop. It's a matter of using your knowledge and helping those that come behind you.
The event highlighted ways in which seniors can get involved in developing and promoting clean air policy.
I think they're a great way for people of our age to get a lot of knowledge all in one place.
I think this is great for senior citizens. This is really what we really need, a place to go to meet different people and just enjoy yourself.
And thanks to events like these, senior citizens can continue to lead energetic and healthy lives. I'm Yana Kay for LA This Week.
Along with council members Jan Perry and Bernard Parks, the South Coast Air Quality Management District also co-hosted the event. How to get our city leaders to pay attention to issues in your district. Get them on your home turf. That's what Valley businesses did recently when they hosted the 8th Annual Mayor's Luncheon. Here's Anna Marcos with more.
Once a year, the mayor has some personal FaceTime with Valley merchants and business leaders. This is the 8th Annual Mayor's Luncheon. Here, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa addresses the Valley's United Chamber of Commerce and the city issues that impact Valley businesses.
I've learned a lot from the people of the San Fernando Valley. I learned that this city needs to chart a course that is embracive of all of us, that makes sure that everybody's getting their fair share, that really makes government more efficient and makes it respond to the needs of the people.
That may be nowhere more true than in the Valley, which tried but failed to secede from the city of LA in 2002.
I was part of the Valley secession movement years ago, and the whole idea was to get elected officials out here from downtown, to make sure we brought the mayor in on a regular basis.
Valley business and civic leaders say the mayor's yearly visit gives merchants the feeling the city is listening.
This inspires the business community. This looks at what are we going to do to help spark business.
The mayor touched on schools and crime and city efforts to bring back business and create jobs. For example, city leaders have done away with gross receipts tax on new car sales to bring back car dealers.
At one time we had 150 car dealers here in the Valley. We're down to 50, and we want to bring them back.
He gave so much inspiration to all the people, and it looks like he's very positive and confident that the future of Los Angeles, even though he's leaving that post.
The bottle of private label wine provided a parting gift. After 8 straight years of attending, this will be the last mayoral luncheon with Valley businesses at least for this mayor. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
The luncheon took place at the Warner Center Marriott in Woodland Hills. City leaders joined the South Asian community in celebrating the Festival of Lights. Meanwhile, another culture commemorates the Day of the Dead with artistic altars and honoring the city's makeup artists who work in the entertainment industry. These stories and more in City Beat.
LA City Council Chambers was alive with music and dance as choreographer and dance instructor Yogan Bhagat performed with a member of his Bollywood step dance troupe in celebration of Diwali, India's biggest national holiday. Councilwoman Jan Perry and a member of the city's sister city of Mumbai organized the special performance.
The celebration this year begins November the 13th and spans 5 days, commemorating the return of Lord Rama from his 14-year-long exile, and involves the lighting of small clay lamps filled with oil to signify the triumph of good over evil.
Just like in India, Indian Americans celebrate Diwali, or the Festival of Lights, with family gatherings, glittering clay lamps, fireworks, and the sharing of sweets. Downtown's newest park, Grand Park, hosted a showcase of Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos altars created by community artists. The altars are a way Mexicans and Mexican Americans have traditionally honored ancestors and loved ones who have passed away.
The photographs you see are members of my family, with several generations, and that is really the focal point of Dia de los Muertos.
Such an important part of the Latino expression and Latino tradition, but also it's been embraced by Angelenos throughout the county.
One artist's altar honored recently deceased astronaut Neil Armstrong and LA-based author Ray Bradbury. Council members Richard Alarcon and Eric Garcetti honored the Makeup and Hairstylists Guild in council chambers on the 75th anniversary of IA Local 706. Founded on November 1st, 1937, IA Local 706 currently represents 1,700 creative craftspeople in the entertainment industry. The labor union provides guaranteed basic wages, working conditions, health care and pension benefits for artists working on feature films, television, commercials, live network television, all types of theater productions, and even Disneyland theme parks.
It's been a dream 10 years in the making, but now one community finally has a universal all-access sports field where kids of all abilities can play. Anna Marcos has more.
No matter what your ability or disability, if you want to play ball, this is the place to do it. City leaders just dedicated the new all-access Barry Sanders sports field at Balboa Park, and kids of all abilities are trying out the turf.
It's an opportunity for them to do things that they can't on a grass field. A lot of my children are in walkers and wheelchairs, and wheels get caught on the turf all the time. It's so nice to have something like this. Plus, it's cushioned for if they fall, they're not going to get hurt.
If you look around, you see no raised bases. You don't see any trip hazards, any falls hazards.
The sports field is named after Barry Sanders, a man who chairs the Board of Commissioners for LA Recreation and Parks and the Southern California Committee for the Olympic Games. It's clear from his own pitching form how much Sanders loves all things sports.
This field is for everyone. It provides inclusiveness, dignity, self-respect, and the respect of others to people who hunger for all of those things.
He wasn't just a big fan of the Olympics. He's a big fan and supporter of the Paralympics, of the Special Olympics. He recognizes that our parks and open space need to be available for everybody.
This sports field will become a focal point for events in the disabled community. For example, it will help host the International Special Olympics when it comes to town in 2015.
Sport became my lifeline. It was the opportunity to show that who I am was not amputated with my legs.
All disabled people, in fact all people in general, are just as capable as the next person.
Some can hit a T-ball and make it to first base. Others can knock down foam bowling pins. For others, learning to swat a soap bubble wand is a victory in itself. This field welcomes them all. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
Organizers raised about $800,000 to build the sports field. Much of the money came from private donors and groups like the Annenberg Foundation and the LA84 Foundation. In this week's list of things to do, a treasure hunt in Chinatown, tasting the flavors of East LA, and Mexican Revolution Day is celebrated.
Looking for an exotic adventure without leaving LA? City Race is putting on the Great Chinatown Hunt on Saturday, November 17th from 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. The exciting clue-solving adventure will take you through one of the city's most colorful, diverse, and historic districts. You'll search for clues by navigating through traditional temples, hidden courtyards, and picturesque alleyways. Discover the sights, smells, and sounds of Asia, all right here in Los Angeles. Meet at Chungking Plaza at 949 North Hill Street in Chinatown. But you've got to purchase tickets first by going to racela.com. To sample a different flavor, literally, join the Melting Pot Tours on Saturday, November 17th from 9 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. for its East LA Latin Flavors Food and Culture Tour, which meets up at the Gold Line station at 901 North Spring Street downtown. Start the day with delicious coffee and traditional pastries, then hop on the Metro Gold Line for a short train ride to discover the most amazing freshly handmade tamales. Then it's off to a tortilla factory to try all kinds of salsa, guacamole dips, and delicacies. There's much more to taste on this food tour, but you'll just have to join to find out by going to meltingpottours.com. And Mexican Revolution Day will be celebrated at the El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument on Tuesday, November 20th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. The day marks the anniversary of the 1910 start of the popular movement, which led to the end of 34 years of military rule, the start of years of civil war, and the eventual establishment of the nation's constitution in 1917. The day will be celebrated with entertainment, artisans, children's workshops, and more. The El Pueblo Historical Monument is located at 200 North Main Street, right across from Union Station. Go to ci.la.ca.us/ELP for more info. And that's a look at some upcoming things to do.
The Watts Towers Art Center's annual Jazz Festival is a can't miss for many locals and music lovers. And organizers hope this festival and other arts events will make Watts a destination for even more Angelenos.
The unmistakable sound of jazz floats through the air at the 36th annual Simon Rodia Watts Towers Jazz Festival. Named after the Italian-American artist who created the Watts Towers, the Jazz Festival is an event that brings out music lovers.
We're having a wonderful time here with multicultural drumming and jazz artists. For the first time, we have a jazz artist from Italy, directly from where Simon Rodia was born. So we're real excited about that.
This jazz fan couldn't contain his excitement, expressing his joy from his fingers to his toes. And neither could this couple who let also their fingers do the dancing.
We've been coming to Watts Towers for over 20 years for the great music and fantastic music and great food.
They bring the best music for the community, for adults as well as children.
The lineup featured the Watts Willowbrook Conservatory String Ensemble, the Azar Lawrence Ensemble, the Ray Bailey Trio, and many other talents.
I came down with my friends to the Watts Festival to see Mr. Ray Bailey. If you never heard him, he's one of the best guitarists in the world and the nicest man I ever met. And we're here to have a good time.
This is my first time here, and I like it very much. I enjoy the music.
And it's first-time festival goers or even first-time Watts visitors that event organizers want to appeal to. They want folks to know the music, the art, and the food of South LA are rich in flavor and history, just like its residents.
We don't have to go up north to see fine art. We can see fine art in our communities. We do this work so that our young people can be proud of themselves and proud of their community.
And events like the Watts Towers Jazz Festival are a chance to show off that pride and to share the heart and soul of Watts with others through the universal language of music.
That's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellen Chang. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacitybview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
home is cozy as electricity, but it can be dangerous, so look out and live. To keep safe at home, follow these tips from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Electricity can arc through the air. Just getting close can give you a shock. Near electrical wires, never use ladders, especially aluminum. They are easy to lift, but make superb conductors and a great path to ground.
I was leaning on something and I created ground through my chest, and that gave me a pretty good shock.
Keep antennas and satellite dishes far from power lines. This model shows you why. Water is a conductor. Be cautious about building pools near electrical lines. And when it's time to clean, keep aluminum handles far away. Don't trim trees if power lines run through them. Resap and rain can act as conductors. Call DWP to have branches cut safely. Power is sometimes distributed underground. Even if you're just digging for landscaping, call ahead of time. All outdoor lighting and outlets should be weatherproof with ground fault interrupters. Make a conscious choice to look out and live.
G'day, Troy McCubbin from North Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Good morning, Los Angeles. It's 10:05. I want to thank Councilman Caino, Councilman Huizar, Councilman Gregorian, Councilman LeBon, Councilman Perry, Councilman Zine, Councilman Weston for being here in the council floor. A few more colleagues to come on down. You have to make your way down to the council floor. It's really appreciated. Now 10:05. One of the special moments we have here in Los Angeles in the chamber is we are visited by dignitaries from throughout the world. And today we have with us the Undersecretary for the President's Office of Development and Decentralization, looks like we have enough council members to get to go. So we're joined by Councilmember Rosendahl. Welcome. Great. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Buscaino, Cardenas, Englander, Garcetti, Huizar, Carrasco, Corcoran, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Zion, Wesson. 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
The first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Councilor Rosendahl moves and Councilor Labange seconds. Next item.
Community resolutions for approval.
Councilor Buscaino moves and Councilor Huizar seconds. Next
Mr.
item.
President, today is Tuesday and now would be the time for the flag salute.
Fantastic. Can we have Councilor Rosendahl, our flag salute? Would like to do the flag salute for us?
Please, yes. Let me get up for it, too. Put your right hand over your heart and say after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, Councilor Labange.
Could we just ask, as everybody be seated, that all veterans stand to be saluted? Mr. Rosendahl, stand. All veterans in the United States services, thank you very much. Thank you. Good job. You got it. Thank you.
You got your hair cut, too.
You got it. You didn't have much to cut.
Okay. Members, if I could direct your attention to the agenda. Madam Clerk, let's run through the agenda.
Item 1 is an item notice for public hearing. The Department of Building and Safety requests that item 1B be continued to November 20th, and that item 1A, C, D, and E be received and filed inasmuch as the liens have been paid.
Without objection, those items are continued and received and filed.
There are cards on this item.
Okay, so we'll hold that special. Members, any specials? Okay, let's open the roll.
Mr. President, that item, because there are cards, will just be held special.
We'll hold that special then. All right. Next item.
Items 2 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, so we can see no cards on. Yes, we do have cards on 2 and 3. What we call special for cards. Next item.
Mr. President, public hearing has been held for all these items. So unless there's a motion to reopen public hearing, you do not need to take the cards.
Seeing no motion to keep those open for public comment, let's open the roll and close the roll. Tabulate the vote. Item 5. We're on 2 and 3. Okay, what items are we on now?
Items 2 through 11.
11, yeah.
Okay, we'll call 5 special.
Yeah, I wanted to call number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7 special.
Okay. 4, 5, 6, and 7 special. And 11.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If there's no objection, Mr. Parks, the folks that were behind the Parks motion on number 4, the Rec and Parks motion, if we can send that back to, I think they're standing down on doing that for March, and if we can just send it back to Rules Committee, is that all right? What do you want?
That was going to be my recommendation because there were some things I specifically asked them to look into, but that we look at that for the May election.
Great. So we'll send it back to Rules with that.
Yeah. But the thing is, I wanted to see if they found out the issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no objection, that'll be sent back.
Questions first?
Yes, you have items 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 11 as well. Councilor Zine?
All right. What were they going to do with number 7? Were they?
That was not special.
I didn't. Okay, I see it. Okay, I wasn't on the board.
Okay, members, any other specials for these, for any items between 2 and through 11? Okay, let's hold those that have been identified as special. The rest, we can open the roll.
Excuse me, Mr. President, for item number 11, you might wish to hold that one on the desk as well.
Okay, we'll hold that on the desk. Are there any items left to vote on?
Yes.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, next item.
Items 12 through 14 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Okay. Do you have any cards for those items? We have
There are cards on items 12, 13, and 14.
All right. So let's open the roll.
Mr. President, there's no items left to vote on in that section.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item.
On the supplemental agenda, item 15 is an item for which a public hearing has not been held. 10 votes required for consideration.
Okay, without objection, those items are before us.
And there are cards on this item.
Okay, that's item 15. We'll hold that for cards. Next item.
Mr. President, that takes council to presentations or items called special.
Okay, do we have presentations today? We have Councilman Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me start today with 3 traditional Sri Lankan greetings. Ayubowan, Wanakam, and Assalamu alaikum, which is in Sinhala, Tamil, and of course in Arabic, greetings from Sri Lanka. It gives me great pleasure for all my colleagues to extend our warmest welcome and best wishes to His Excellency, Jalia Wickramasuriya, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Sri Lanka to the United States of America. Please welcome him to our council chambers. His Excellency represents an incredibly vibrant group of immigrants here in the United States of America and Sri Lankans who visit the United States. Here in the Los Angeles area, we have the second largest population of Sri Lankans after New York, New Jersey. It's a vibrant and growing population that strengthens one of Los Angeles' key assets, our diversity. A diversity that feeds our city's creativity, our entrepreneurial spirit, and which gives us direct connections to the global economy. Ambassador Wickramasuriya has served in his current post since 2008, during times of great change in Sri Lanka. And previously, he was Consul General right here in California. So I also want to say welcome home and welcome back. I also want to point out our Consul General here in Los Angeles, who's with us as well, Dr. Hector Weerasinghe, who is here, and Dr. Malraj, and Mr. Malraj de Silva, who's with us here from the Community Development Commission in the County of Los Angeles. The ambassador has not been a career civil servant. Rather, he was a successful executive in the nation's famous tea industry who ended up working here in the United States but answered his nation's call to service. And I know we have a very busy agenda, Mr. President, but let me close with this. Sri Lanka is a tremendous country. My parents just traveled there last year. I'm too busy here to be able to get there, but I hope to get there in the future very soon. It has a 90% literacy rate, a growing economy. It was named this year by Lonely Planet as the world's best place to visit. And after many years of war, we finally have peace, and we celebrate that with the people of Sri Lanka because that is so important. When I think of the Sri Lankans here in our community that have had such great contributions, I think of my own friends, Dr. Ambrose and others who have had such an incredible impact on the life of Los Angeles. So, Ambassador, thank you so much for visiting us today. The people of Los Angeles are ready to work with you on initiatives that move us both forward. And please, on the occasion of your visit al pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Angeles, which is our full name, Los Angeles, we welcome you, Ambassador Jalia Wickramasuriya. Here, if you'd like to say some words.
Welcome to City Hall.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Chairman, council members, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to receive this welcome from the city of Los Angeles, California. It is great to be back in my former home, as you mentioned, favorite place in the United States for me.
All right. Yeah.
Actually, we have the same climate as Sri Lanka here, so that's why I like it. Thank you very much to call the city of council members for the welcoming me here today. I commend all of you for the excellent work you do as leaders of this great city. I always feel at home here in Los Angeles, where there is very large active Sri Lankan community, as you mentioned. We have over 150,000 Sri Lankans living in California, so most of them are from Los Angeles. Sri Lanka is one of the oldest democracies in Asia. We have over 2,500-year-old history. As you mentioned, the Lonely Planet just mentioned, the best country to visit in 2013 is Sri Lanka. So we are extremely happy about it. I just want to share one thing. Now, we had unfortunate conflict going on for last 30 years. Soon after that, the Sri Lanka is moving forward. No loss of life due to terrorism in Sri Lanka anymore. Our GDP growth is 8.2%. And then our unemployment has come down to 4% in Sri Lanka. So I thought I should share that with you. And I invite all of you to visit Sri Lanka. I know you will love my country and my home as much as I love your home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you to Mahesh Parekh as well, who helped arrange this. And
we do have one member on the queue, Councilman Rosendahl.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, welcome back. And, you know, our great nation and your nation is joined at the hip. And it's true, New York and New Jersey have more folks from your country. But I was just talking with Karen Bass. This is before Obama got reelected, resoundingly like that, who was off to Africa to represent the House of Representatives from the Democratic perspective on all the issues of Africa. And I know now with the future pretty clear with our democracy in this country that you'll see a lot more relationships with the United States, with Sri Lanka, and I just want to welcome you back to LA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. We'll take some pictures of one more presentation, but go ahead and we'll take some pictures afterwards. Okay. Thank you. And Mr. President, we have one other presentation. I'd like to ask the Aztec Fire Crew to please join me. Come on, guys. You can all come over here.
I'll be joining you.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask Mr. Reyes to join me as well. Mr. Reyes has, with myself, Mr. Huizar, in previous years, if you want to join us, feel free, Mr. Huizar, to join us too. And so many of us who have interacted with the Aztec Fire Crew. This is an amazing organization, a community-based gang intervention agency that works with at-risk and formerly gang-affiliated youth to turn their lives around, to literally help them light a fire in their own lives that they then are able to take out there on the field, going from being seen as a menace to society to those who are protecting society. Aztec Fire Crew currently provides services to clients in the communities of Highland Park and Glassell Park, East Hollywood, Rampart, Lincoln Heights, and Westlake area. The Aztec Fire Crew provides intervention services through its job training programs, and the students standing behind me today have participated in an intense curriculum that focuses on job training, workforce skill development, drug abuse counseling, and comprehensive case management. These cadets have learned the skills that it takes to fight some of the most dangerous fires our country has ever seen. Most recently, cadets from the Aztec Fire Crew participated on a fire line in Aurora, Colorado, and we saw those incredible fires in Colorado. I want to congratulate each and every one of you today, not only for getting your lives pointed in a positive direction, but for aiming your lives towards public service. There is no better route. And I know you have worked incredibly hard as part of the Aztec program, and I'd like to ask my colleague, Councilmember Ed Reyes, to say a few words as well, and then we're going to present a certificate on behalf of the entire city to each one of you. So please, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Councilman Garcetti. For your support and belief in organizations like the Aztec Fire Crew. Colleagues, back in about 1995, were at a community meeting in Cypress Park. At that time, we had some tragic shootings. We had a little girl who was shot in an alleyway in that part of the neighborhood. Council President Clinton at the time raised the name of Cypress Park in a fairly negative light because of these very intense shootings. So I'm at a community meeting and I meet this young man by the name of Enrique Hurtado, who comes into the building. Still young. And we are talking about how do we get our youth in a different frame of mind? What makes them think differently so they can add value to life? And one of the key factors was the sense of self-worth, and that begins with a job. And so the outlet and how we create an option for a young person that leads to a job is one of the major steps we as a city could generate to deal with this level of lawlessness.
there's idle time, there's essentially nothing to do out there, and you have the subcultures that have such a significant influence on our youth. Enrique Hurtado, the board, since that time, the leadership that's emerged throughout the years, it's now close to 15, 16 years later. You see this amazing organization that has bloomed into a national presence in their firefighting skills, but they offer, why can't we clean your thoroughfares, your greenways? Why can't we help you with the empty lots? Why can't we help you with the hillsides? Why can't we work with the fire department, have more jobs through city's personnel? Why aren't we creating more access for them? These are the questions we still need to answer. These are steps we need to take, working with the unions, work with personnel, working with the city leaders. I'm sure we'll continue to evolve and return to a place where our youngsters can have a sense of self-worth and have a choice and not falling into a downward spiral. So thank you, Councilman Garcetti, for making sure they're being recognized. Thank you, Enrique, for never giving up. And thank you for the leadership, the leaders who are the unsung heroes that are right behind us. Thank you for this opportunity.
Love to hear from Enrique Hurtado.
Mr. Garcetti, before you do that, Mr. Zine is on the queue.
Thank you. Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Reyes, and to the unsung heroes that people don't recognize that are out there protecting these communities surrounding here. I've seen them in action, seen the wonderful work that they do. Enrique, I know you've been doing this for a number of years. You're the only one in a suit. So you're not out there on the front lines. You're directing the operation, and they're doing a great job. No, you put on the shirt and you go out there and do it. I know. I'm just teasing you with that. But they're really to be commended for what they're doing to help the communities that obviously have the situations take place. They're on the scene. They're taking care of it, getting their lives in the right direction. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to all of them for sticking with it. Mr. Reyes, thank you. Mr. Garcetti, thank you. But this is a phenomenal program that does so well to mold people in the right direction. Also help those parts of our community that have the incidents that take place, and they're there helping out, making sure, protecting life and property. So God bless you all. Keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'd like to hear from Enrique Hurtado, who is the executive director now.
Good morning. Councilman Garcetti said, I've been coming here for many, many, many years. But I want to thank them, Councilman Garcetti and Reyes, for taking the leadership to providing small little projects other than the firefighting that my guys do. My guys train at least 10 months out of the year. It takes them about 5 months to get ready. That's a lot of commitment that they put. Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, on the weekdays. If they have a part-time job, but this is a career. Now these guys are professionals. They fought fire this year, Colorado, like we said, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Idaho. They're calling when the western states, all the states are in disasters. Our group from here, from Los Angeles, is being dispatched over there to go help. Again, we need more projects. Sometimes, depending on the fire season, that's the only time these guys work. But we need more work because I don't want to turn these guys back into their regular life. Like Councilman said, there's a lot of time. But can someone else take the leadership and also help and provide work opportunities and some projects that these guys could do? I want to thank everybody, thank the fire crew for excellent performance in the fires that they fought. And I just want to say continue the good work. Aztecs Rising staff, they also provide gang intervention under the grid, and this is a perfect opportunity for people, young adults that want to do a productive life. And just to say that ever since I've been doing this, more than 1,500 individuals already landed a job with United States Forest Service, state, municipal, and different fire departments.
That's great.
But the people that don't get a fire job, they do learn the structure and the discipline to get another meaningful job to provide for their families. Thank you.
If I may,
Mr.
if I may, Council President, can we just have the staff that's here introduce themselves? Their staff.
But before you do that, Enrique, before you do that, Mr. Labange.
I had to rise, Mr. President, for Enrique and all of you. I see you train in Griffith Park. I see you climb from 900 feet to 1,625 feet to Mount Hollywood. I see your effort, and you got a great leader. But the trouble with the great leader, I did not recognize you in your suit, as Mr. Zine said. It was tough, and you were sitting over on this side. But it's your heart that drives the team. It's your heart that gives this opportunity. Mr. Garcetti, as always, Mr. Reyes, as always, thank you for honoring these great young men, and we'll look forward to opportunities for partnerships. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I know I'm stepping out of the program here, but I really, in Lincoln Heights, there's an office there, and there's folks that are working there all day, all night, and some of them are here, aren't they? Some of your staff?
Yes.
Could you have them introduce themselves?
Can you guys come up forward, please?
Just stand up and just recognize. Just stand up. Give a big round of applause. This is the staff that makes it happen, folks. Thank you so much. So, Enrique, this is presented to you a certificate of recognition. There's a lot of whereases, but I think we've said what we had to say about the good work that you've done. You've been recognized for your leadership, your heart, more importantly, your sacrifices. Congratulations. Signed on behalf of Councilman Garcetti and myself.
Thank you.
And we've got a certificate for Manuel Guerrero as well, who's worked as a community intervention worker in the Hollenbeck area, and he's been there now for 35 years being an intervention worker. Please give him a round of applause and thank him for his great work. Congratulations.
Can I say something? I just want to say, on behalf of Aztecs Rising, this person I'm blessed to have him on staff. He's worked many years, like I said, 35 years on gang intervention. And when I started this agency, I kind of looked for people like that have the knowledge and the wisdom to guide us. And I give, for the most part, Manuel Guerrero a lot of credit for what the Aztecs Rising is doing. And for many years, these guys worked in the night, just talking to individuals to transform them into a better life. And Manuel has done it for many years, 35 years, and this is why. And I just want to say your family's here. This is a surprise. We wanted to give them a surprise, and then after this we have a reception also. And I bet the wife and you guys are lucky to have a person like this. Okay, thank you, Manuel.
President,
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you very much. And before you go on, first, my huge congratulations and thank you to Aztecs Rising. But to the individual, Manuel, who just got the recognition and the surprise, this is a gentleman who you see doing every single thing there is to do, not only fighting fires, but in the community, helping with the Christmas events, with the turkey giveaways, with whenever there's an event or a need in the community. He's driving vans, he's cleaning up. You've been out there, whether it's Garcetti's, Reyes's, all over the city and the east side. Thank you so much for your work. This recognition, Enrique, is well deserved. Thank you for recognizing a gentleman who is another unsung hero. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl?
Yes, Mr. President. I just want to make a couple of comments. We have a red flag day today. We know it where I live. I'm in the 11th. That brings in the hillsides and the canyons. Everybody's on alert. Our great fire chief has put a full engine company in place right now up in the Palisades, which I'm delighted. But I can't thank you guys enough, and ladies, for what you do, because that's the backdrop to this crazy weather problem we're having in this nation. This climate business is out of control. If we didn't learn anything from the last thing in New York, We in California certainly don't want fires destroying our homes. I know it's not your group, but I always carry the cup, Homeboys, because a job and being involved is really the best way to move us forward as a people and a nation. So hats off, congratulations. Thank you for all you're doing for all of us. Bye.
Well, I want to say something about when I start doing this job. I take it like a job because, for me it's not, safe. And I left my other job to get this job. And when they offered this job, and I said, man, to work with gang members and drugs and this and this. But the first, I say, I want to do something for my community. I want to do something with the barrios. I want to do something with the drugs, the ones the community need to, to calm down. I remember, back in the days when I worked with the Community Youth Gun Service, we worked from 6 p.m. to 3 in the morning. We was playing a lot of times on the streets. And we hang out, with the homies. We hang out. We pick up a lot of bodies in the alleys and the parks over drugs. Try to wake them up with ice and knock the doors and ask for help. So we're doing a lot of job back in the days, but now, thank you. They got me like surprised. I don't. Thank you for recognizing me, and absolutely. I know Garcetti, I know El Reyes, I know Jose Huizar. I told some of the staff, take it serious, do what you are, and we continue doing this job. Right, thanks.
Congratulations, and thank you again. Mr. Garcetti for an acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I wanted to just very quickly acknowledge our incoming pastor at the First AME Church. We have Pastor Boyd here today with us, who's come down here from San Francisco. A tremendous friend, J. Edgar Boyd, who was here during the unrest, the urban unrest, as a Angelino, went up to the Bay Area, and like any good Californian, once he gets up north, figures out that the South is the promised land. So I wanted to welcome him and give him a round of applause. Mr. Parks, who is a council member, I know for First AME as well, but want to just welcome him to Chambers and welcome him back to the City of Angels, and wish him all the very, very best at First AME. Please give him a round of applause.
Mr. President and members of the council, how pleased I am to stand here today with you. And I stand on the banks of persons who preceded me, like the late Bishop H. Hartford Brookins and Cecil L. Chip Murray, who did a phenomenal work here in the city of Los Angeles, and particularly with communities that had had its tentacles in the seats of government across the city and the county of Los Angeles. We commit ourselves and our resources and all of what we do for the betterment of the quality of life for citizens of Los Angeles. And it is my pleasure to return back to the South, and the South has risen, and we appreciate that. We thank God for you. I want to commend Councilman Rosendahl, and we're prayerful for you and your recovery. We do work that certainly can be of help to your recovery, and we thank God for you, and we offer ourselves to you as you recover and return to your activity on this council. God bless you. Thanks to all.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, maybe we'll go over to item 1. I think we had some items there.
Yeah, item 1 calls special for cards.
Okay, we have 2 cards on item 1. We have Arnold Sachs and John Walsh. Please come on up.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. For identification purposes only, the victorious chairman of the anybody but vote anybody or anything except Measure J. We won. Go to our website. This concerns item 1 for public hearing, confirmation of nuisance abatement costs. We're all in favor of abating nuisances. And actually, you do a good job until 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 a.m. in my neighborhood when the bars leave. Then the nuisances begin. Incidentally, we're asking for open for number 5, a special hearing on number 5. Hear the public. This is a tax. And if you don't listen
We're not talking
to us,
about this item.
Item 1, please.
Highlands.org. You can heckle me all you want. We won. No on Measure J.
Thank you. Arnold Sachs.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. Another foreclosure listing of properties under the REAP, or a Building and Safety Report. So here's an article from June 20th of 2012. It just says the South Bay foreclosures. This is from the Daily Breeze. But it mentions that in San Pedro and in Wilmington, between those 3 areas, there's almost 4,500 properties in foreclosure. Now, just on the rare chance you take 10% of those 4,500 properties and say those should be dilapidated homes that should be looked into, and maybe the banks fined $1,000 a day, well, that would be 450.
Mr. President, he's not talking about these liens.
Excuse me, these are, never mind, my time's up.
Please, you're stopping the meeting now. Madam Clerk?
Mr. President, there is request to receive and file these items A, C, D, and E.
Okay, so moved. So we can go to item 12.
Item 12 calls special for cards.
Arnold Sachs, come on up, and John Walsh.
Well, thank you again, Arnold Sachs. I certainly do appreciate this item. The attention to the minutia of the detail here. that you're transferring from Council District 10 Public Benefits Trust Fund number 50R and not Council District 10 Real Property Trust Fund number 692. Well, I remember just last week you had an item regarding the audit of redevelopment funds receiving file, no documentation, and that was like almost $300 million. So when it comes to attention to detail, you guys got it covered. This is really impressive. I'm glad to know that Trust Fund number 50R and not Trust Fund number 692 is getting the money. But just on the rare case of future knowledge, well, how much is the balance of Trust Fund 692 in reference to Trust number 50R? It's very important we know this details, never mind the $400 million.
John Walsh. And then Dollhouse Dude.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. For a full, this incidentally concerns minutia. I don't attack you on minutia. I'm a big game hunter. I go after elephants, not fleas. So I'm not worried about what's happening here in number 12, transferring, it makes you fall asleep. Palms beautification account, there's no problem here. But if you want an extended treatment of this issue, I say immediately, the 70,000 people who are out here, go to Ron K. L.A., go to Mayor Sam, or go to Joseph Maylander.
Again, sir, you are not focused on the item.
I am expanding my, okay. You can heckle me all you want. Those 70,000 people are on my side. Hollywood High.
Juan Dollhouse. Juan Dollhouse. Juan Dollhouse, are you here? Last call. He's not here. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Next item.
Item 13, call special for cards.
Okay, item 13. Arnold Sachs, John Walsh, and Juan Dollhouse. Come on up. If you don't mind, you have seats that are empty right next. I think you have the next item as well. We can move this meeting along.
Well, you never know, there might be another presentation. You might have to evacuate. Reviewing gift requiring City Council approval is subject to Council policy. So I'm wondering, because there's been a lot made recently in some of the articles regarding the free gifts some of the council members got at the Coliseum for football games and at Staples Center for concerts and LA Live for concerts. So if you have this policy in effect, evidently you need to review the policy. Actually, we need to review the reviewers of the policy in order to get something right. Because it seems like people are saying, oh, I used those tickets, I got tickets, I did this, I went to see different concerts, I went to see different shows. Oh, you mean we had a policy? There is a policy regarding this, and we're going to review it? Good luck with that.
John Walsh. John Walsh, and you would be next.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. 1.4 million successful server requests in September 1st, 2011. Okay, this concerns gifts. Now, you may recall that this was this gift ordinance. We passed this. Well, I didn't vote for it. As part of extending your term limits to 12 years, you would cut down on your gifts. This was Tricky Ricky Garcetti. He's not here. He's collecting money on the phone. The point I'm making here is beware geeks bearing gifts. The gifts come almost exclusively from huge corporate firms in L.A. And we have Mr. Krikorian. And I don't believe that's Mr. Krikorian. I think it's double, because nothing is real about him. Not his website, nothing is real.
Sir, again, stay focused on the item.
Okay.
HollywoodHighlands.org.
You're giving me the gift of pain. HollywoodHighlands.org. Your gift
Thank you very
policy
much.
is not being enforced properly. You know that. I'd like from you to give us a list of every single gift you have received. We have Mr. Zine got a gift of sex from one of the lobbyists.
Again, sir, is out of order.
HollywoodHighlands.org. Didn't he get a gift of sex? HollywoodHighlands.org.
Juan Dalhouse.
Hey, how was your gift, Mr. Syme? Was she good? Never mind. Yeah, well, if you're going to be giving anything, why don't we give housing to everybody? No, that's not the issue, right, attorney? I hate attorneys like you.
Sir, stay focused on the item.
They're always
You're being
lying.
disruptive to the meeting. Stay focused to the item.
All right, they're always lying, but all these gift things, it's just a way to get around in society and enrich yourself and not enrich society. You see, that is what we're doing wrong. We are accepting too many gifts from special interests, and we are neglecting the real people that elected you. They all need a lot of services. The streets are in shambles. You are having millions of parking meters. So, you know, gifts are one thing, and the things you give the people are nothing but pain. He's right. You know, you
are
give
not on the
everybody
subject, sir. Please.
subject. You need to do business in a different way. Do not accept gifts from anybody.
Okay, no one else for speaker cards. It's Councilman Krikorian.
Mr. President, just for the sake of the record, the matter before us has nothing to do whatever with gifts to elected officials. That's already governed by the ethics code that this city has. This has to do with gifts to the city of Los Angeles that foundations and others want to make. It has nothing to do with gifts to elected officials at all.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Councilmember. So let's open the row, close the row, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 14 calls pleasure for cards.
Okay, we have John Walsh and Juan Dalhouse Duke. John Walsh. These guys are...
John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.org. Get a really revealing picture of the mayor's girlfriend, La Reina del Sur. Right in there, Kate Del Castillo. Okay, now let's talk about rewards. I want a reward for Kennedy Garcia. Kennedy Garcia was handcuffed, put on his stomach, and
Mr.
shot
President,
to
he is
death.
not talking about this reward offer.
Stay focused on the reward on the item, sir. You are disruptive to the meeting at this time. Stay focused on the item before you, sir. All right. Juan Dalhouse Duke.
I have 2 minutes, but you know what? I'm going to pass because this guy, you know, somebody should do something about this death, okay?
Okay. Let's open the row, close the row, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
All right. This next item, item 15, I believe.
Yes, item 15 calls pleasure for cards.
Okay, we have Mariam Fogler, Donna, Arnold Sachs, and Dalhouse Duke. Good morning.
Yeah, how much are you going to raise the price here like the zoo? Where is your ethics on this matter? Of course, they're all appointed by you people, so there's a conflict of interest there. Obviously, they're protecting your backs, so you can receive all your gifts. But the point I'm saying is that, the Tillman plant is such an important part of the San Fernando Valley, and it shouldn't be priced out of existence here, is that people should have no access to it. People should have a right to be going there. It's a wonderful place. It's a part of the reclamation plant where my husband used to work at. and it's essential part of the filming industry. So I don't think that these fees are going to be practical. When you people say that we're going to not charge filming here, I think this should be sent back to the committee and killed, because this is a very bad part on your part. And for that matter, I'm not getting any representation from Tony Cardenas in the 6th District here. I think this is an outrage that he is not here.
Ma'am,
He's
we're
going to be
focused on the Japanese fees here for the film.
If he's going to represent people in the Congress about matters,
Ma'am, again, stay focused on the item.
then he should be here representing the Tillman, the Japanese gardens. Okay, he's been there and he doesn't do anything about it. And he's just, to me, he's not doing nothing. He says nothing and he does nothing. So as
Thank
far as
you.
I'm,
Yes. Donna?
It looks to me like, my name is Donna Perriman, this looks to me like another way of taking things away for another recreation for people to go to set up fees. And I don't understand the filming users fees when you sit around and talking about how you wanted to make things easier for the film industry. So this seems to be going against itself. Anyway, she says right. Tillman is a very important area for that's for the sanitation, and I don't want to sit around and ruining the Tillman plant by having a whole bunch of fees and bringing a whole bunch of people in that wouldn't have been coming in, and for instance, maybe even sending in buses for these people. Doesn't seem like a very good idea, because we need to have more free areas for people to keep out of trouble, and for people to be able to go with their families. And I don't know what area you're going to do the fees on, but this doesn't seem like a very good thing. So I say you should vote no on it, but I already know you vote on yes on it before you even walked in the door. So I know that what I say or what Miriam says or what anybody else says doesn't matter, because you already decided yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Arnold Sachs and Juan Dalhouse Dude. Arnold Sachs passes.
On this item, I am going to pass because she's right. You always vote anyway, whether the people want it or not.
We have one colleague on the queue, Councilman Koretz.
Well, I do actually have the same question that I expressed in committee and was expressed here about whether we should assess an additional filming fee that we haven't assessed before. I actually think we should go in the opposite direction. We still charge some filming fees in parks. I think we should make every public property that we could allow to be free for filming to be free. So I think that piece of it actually goes in the wrong direction. I'd like to see that eliminated.
Okay. Councilor Labange.
Is there anybody here for the department to explain on this? Is someone here for the department?
Yes, we have someone coming up.
Is this a modest fee?
Good morning, Councilman. Yes, it is. It's basically to recover our costs that we put into the filming activities.
Basically, at Tillman, someone will get a permit, and basically you have to assign someone there to supervise to make sure they don't go into the area, similar to what they do at other park facilities or other city facilities. The monitor, do we pay for the monitor when they come to City Hall, or does the production company? And is there anyone here who would know that question? Mr. CLA, would you know that question? Because I think Mr. Koretz, Mr. Rosendahl are right, but at the same time, there's a cost that we have to recover, and if it's a modest cost, what is the fee? If I want to make a movie out there,
The fee, I believe we've asked for a $2,000 fee, but we can make adjustments as necessary. I might be a little bit high, but
well,
we
yeah,
can.
why don't we just put what it costs to pay for someone to be there, to supervise? I don't think $2,000 a day, I don't know who makes $2,000 a day working for the city. So I think we should look at that. Does this go back to, where did this come from? What committee? E&E. Does the great man of E&E want to stand up and take it back in and look at it? Yeah.
Let me ask, Mr. President, can I speak?
Please.
Thank you. We thoroughly looked at this in committee, and we were comfortable with it coming forward. But if the department feels that there is no time limitations, we can take this back with this question. I would ask that we just move forward. But if other council members want to look at this, is there any time limitations to this?
No, it is not, Councilman.
Okay, so if you want to send it back to committee and review that one question and give us a written report to the Energy and Environment Committee on that one question, and then we'll take a look at it again. Mr. Koretz is on the committee as well, so he'll. Are you on the committee?
Yeah. I'm trade and commerce and all things Hollywood, so nothing over $300 a day, something like that.
We'll take it. We'll take a look at that and send this back to committee. That's fine.
Okay, Councilman. Thank you.
We'll send this back to committee and get those questions answered. Thank you, sir. So we'll open the roll to refer to committee. And close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay. Okay, so from here, Madam Clerk, let's move to item 7, and we'll start with the cards. We do have Arnold Sachs, Marion Fogler, Donald Perlman. Please come on up. Followed by Daphne Sue. Yeah, we do have John Walsh has no more time on his. So he'll be done for today. Arnold Sachs, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. You want to adopt a half-cent sales tax, and yet it's such a bad taste in your mouth, you leave. You had discussions here regarding the sale of Ontario Airport for $250 million, at least minimum. And I brought up the question, papers have reported that the city bought the airport, and luckily Gina Marie Lindsay was here to answer that question and say no, LAWA bought the airport. Yet documentation in your archives show that the title was transferred from Ontario Airport to the city of LA. And on that very same day, one couple of days later, Dennis Zine has the fraud division here regarding property in the city of LA. So it really wasn't answered. It was just taken care of by city council. So where is the $250 million going? To the city or to LAWA? Nobody wants to answer those questions. Maybe you could have another parcel tax. You should look at parcel tax. You want a parcel tax for the parks. How about a parcel tax for the library? How about a parcel tax for everything else? You give out sales tax money, and we knew about the problem that occurred with the trash fee that was picked up, how that money was spent. Oh, wait, it was supposed to go for new police, but it really didn't go totally for new police. So now you're going to get your hands on half-cent sales tax. And look at what happened with Measure R. If you looked at the last accounting for Measure R for October, for the fiscal year 2011, the half-cent that it was supposed to be collecting isn't really half a cent, because according to MTA, it's a fairly new tax and it takes time to catch up to the other half cents that are being collected for transit. It's a wonderful situation. I suggest people pay more attention to really what's going on.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Marion Fogler.
Mr. President, just for the record, an ordinance has been circulated for item number 7.
Okay, ordinance has been
I'm
circulated.
standing here, and I knew Howard Jarvis, and I knew Paul Gann personally, folks. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm here because this is can't come down here because my feet hurt, my legs and my back. But I'm going to tell you right now, because I don't have video conferencing, but I'm going to tell you right now, we cannot be passing any parcel taxes against people in the homes that live against land. What we need to do is make a fair distribution, and I'm pro-city tax now, because you people passed Prop 30. I want to pass the city tax, and I will back you up 1,000% on this. So if you people, all 15 of you, want to get a hold of me here, I'm here, okay? Because we need to make sure that this city tax goes through all the essential services that have been taken off, because the state of California is holding back redevelopment money. Where's the $1 billion that I don't know where that is, okay? So the fact is, the matter is that we don't want these other taxes. The only one is the straight across the board sales tax. That's the way to go. Just like Prop 30 with the schools, and I don't even think that's even going to be achievable because Brown says that he has to use the money from the summer budget. So it's unstable, Prop 30. So if you folks don't hold your breath that you think you're going to be out of the woods yet. Okay, but the city tax will give us a big boost here, and will certainly return my video conferencing in Van Nuys. I'd like to see that happen. So please, I urge you not to pass the other taxes and just put the city tax on the ballot, and we'll vote for it. So I'd like to see everybody here with their hands up, all 15 members only for the city tax, no other taxes, please. Okay? All right, because the fact is, we have to support our government. I want to do it only for central services and video conferencing in Van Nuys, have that reinstated. Okay? And then we can work at, maybe we can make it better camera. Thank
you very much. Donna Perlman.
Yeah, that's Perriman. Anyway, I agree with her, and I agree with you, but 1,000% you should be doing the sales tax. This is a lot better way than using parcel tax, because this is a more fair way for everybody, because everybody uses city services. Who doesn't use city services in one way or another? We have to get somebody some way, and I'll agree that the sales tax increase would be the most fair way, and actually people who have more would actually end up using more because they would probably buy more. We will all lose if we don't support our city services. I mean, our streets won't, central city services, our streets won't be fixed, our sanitation won't be done correctly, the fire and police won't be done, won't be there. So we have to say that, heck, if something does cost money, then you have to come up with it some way. And so I think this is the most fair way. If you have to do that, since they don't seem to mind, they always seem to bring up sales tax all over the place. We might as well use it in the good spot and not these wasteful lays like Prop 30. Which I think was a waste of money, and Prop J would have been a waste of money because that's all rail projects. So I say yes on this sales tax thing. I'm going to live off so I have more time.
Daphne Sue.
Hello, I'm Daphne Sue. I'm here with my colleague Robert Garcia from the City Project. We're here on behalf of diverse allies, the Ahotman Nano Tribe, Amigos de los Rios, Anahuac Youth Soccer Association, the City Project, concerned citizens of South Central Los Angeles, California LULAC, Latino Coalition for a Healthy California, Prevention Institute, Sierra Club, Social Justice Consultancy, and Spark. We understand that the revenue from the sales tax may be used for parks. Minority and low-income voters disproportionately support measures for park revenue and should receive their fair share of benefits. You should have in front of you letters from us and maps, and if you can see on the map where the area is red, if you look on the first page, there's a map of the city. It's from 2000 census data, and all the maps were compiled in 2006. So the council districts are historic council districts. You can see the areas in red where exceeds county averages for minority, youth, poverty, and no access to cars. It's important for us to have parks in these areas. We support a citizens oversight committee and an equity plan to ensure that funding is equitably distributed. The equitable distribution of park resources is legally required, and I hope you do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That does conclude the cards for public comment on this item. Move to the discussion. If we can have the staff come to the center table.
On item 7?
On item 7, we don't have your card.
Tell him to come and speak anyway.
No, he's going to. Okay, we can have the staff present what's in front of us, please.
Good morning, Miguel Santana, CAO.
This item pertains to potential sales tax increase to provide support for basic and essential services, primarily focused around public safety in light of the fact that 70% of the general fund goes to that service. The proposal would provide about $215 million of additional general fund non-restrictive funding to provide that support to those essential services. Part of the action that we took following the previous direction that the city attorney draft the ordinance is we hired Beacon Economics, an outside independent firm, to look at the potential impact that an increased sales tax would have in sales in Los Angeles. The inherent concern is that if we increase our sales tax, then would that drive consumers to the surrounding areas? We have Jordan Levine from Beacon Economics who could briefly talk about their findings and tell us what the potential impact would be of sales throughout. Before he gets into that discussion, it's important to point out that in this last recent election, 3 other cities in the area adopted similar measures. The city of Commerce adopted a measure that brings their sales tax up to 9.25. Culver City adopted a sales tax at 9.25, and La Mirada at 9.75. There will still be several cities in LA County that will have increased sales tax, including El Monte, Inglewood, Santa Monica, South El Monte, Pico Rivera, and Southgate in the region. And there are other cities around the state who have adopted increases in the sales tax or are contemplating doing so. So I could have Mr. Levine discuss his findings.
Sure. So what we did was we built a study where we looked at about 14 other cities across California that have imposed a similar sales tax measure over the last 10 years or so, since 2000. What we found was that there was a marginal decrease in overall spending as a result of these increases in sales tax. In the case of a half cent that's being considered here, we found that the decrease in sales was going to be a little bit less than 1%, about 0.85% reduction in overall spending. We did provide a range of outcomes that ranged from 0.4 all the way up to 1.3, but 0.85 was our baseline estimate, and that's a result of folks shopping in other jurisdictions as well as just overall reduction in spending. But overall, the reduction in overall activity was actually quite minimal. In terms of the substitution effect, I think it really is important to point out that a decent number of adjacent cities, about 10 in total, have equivalent or higher tax rates than what we're considering here. And so that's going to mitigate some of that competitive pressure in terms of folks going to outlying areas to do their shopping. We did look at this on a category-by-category basis. We couldn't really find any real significant effects for other categories except for building materials, but ultimately the overall effect was less than 1% on spending as a result of this half-cent increase.
Any other comments?
No, that concludes our comments. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so let's go to the queue. We have Councilmember Wesson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President and members. I have to applaud the previous leadership in this House for challenging us to make very tough choices. So I think we owe Mr. Garcetti, Ms. Perry, Mr. Zine, and Mr. Parks as chair. And I just want to briefly go through some of the things that we have done. We have frozen hiring. We have eliminated 5,000 positions. In fact, our city workforce today is the same size that it was when Mayor Tom Bradley was mayor. We have worked with our labor unions to increase their contribution to the pension from 6% to 11%. Sworn personnel from 9 to 11. Just recently, we passed pension reform that we believe will really work and that it will cut the legal muster. where the pension benefits will be altered, where it relates to all new city employees. We have reduced cash overtime, and the police department, believe it or not, we have cut them by over $80 million. And if you want to ask that question, and I do believe we have a member of LAPD that is here today. We have consolidated various departments, and to Joey B. and I guess Mr. Parks and Mr. Zine and Mr. Englander, incoming police officers, we have reduced their salary by 20%. So I think we have done many tough things to show that we're serious about putting this city on the right economic path. But I don't think we can solely cut our way out of this problem. We, as a city government, have a responsibility to deliver services to the residents of this city. 72% of our budget right now today comes out of public safety. If we've done, and we have, all of the cuts that I have just listed, and I'm sure Mr. Krikorian will speak later more eloquently and with more detail. If we have done this, 72% of our budget is public safety, we don't get relief with some kind of additional revenue stream. Where do you think we'll have to look to cut? The police department gets the largest share. There's no way we can come up with an additional $200 million if we don't look at them. So we need time to slow down and breathe, which is what the sales tax will do. It will afford each and every one of us the opportunity to do forward thinking where it relates to our future. Now, I do want to take a moment to set the record straight. There are people who are conspiracy theorists, and they think that there was this whole sales tax issue with some plot or what have you. Let me tell you why it happened. In 2010, there were over 30 measures on the statewide ballot where it relates to sales tax. Over 2/3 of them were passed. On this past Tuesday, there were 36 measures statewide to increase the sales tax. 29 of that 36 passed, and several of those had a 2/3 threshold, and they got over 60%. Case in point, Measure J in the city of LA got over 69% of the vote. So this would lead me to believe that this is the common sense approach, the pragmatic way to go. I was walking down the hall in this building, and a man that I know since 1989 says, "Herbie, why don't you try a sales tax?" I said, I hadn't thought about that. Then we started to do the research on it, and it seemed, again, like the way to go. There was no backroom deal or what have you. Everybody seated around this horseshoe knows that the CAO's office and others were having discussions with the realtors. That's no secret. They were trying to come to a compromise where it related to the transfer tax. Members, the transfer tax, and God bless you for all the work that you've done, I haven't seen one poll where the transfer tax is more than 41%. So you're losing going in. The only other tax measure that we have discussed that gets any traction is the parcel tax. And I don't know if we're ready to move forward on that. We should never place more than one revenue-generating measure on the ballot. So with that said, I'm going to let you guys have the discussion. But we need to act. We need to act today to stabilize this city. And I don't want to lie to you. If we're successful, guess what? There are other tough things that we're still going to have to do. There are other discussions that we're going to have about reinventing this city and figuring out how to provide more with less. So this is not it. But what this will do, if we are successful, is give us a chance to take a breath and figure out how to proceed. It is with respect that I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and I saw that you checked your time. That's pretty good. Thank you, Councilman Wilson. You did great. Councilman Parks.
Thank you very much. Let me just ask, we've gotten a lot of questions about this particular issue. Can you kind of go through the issue that it's I think general obligation is 50% plus one, and just give people the parameter. Is there a cap or a drop dead date? Does it evaporate at some time, or is this a tax that will continue on? But just to give the background so people clearly understand what we're attempting to do.
Well, this is proposed as a general tax, which has a voter requirement of 50% plus one. Again, as Mr. Weston was referred to, some of the measures that were on Tuesday's ballot were special taxes. Those would be dedicated for specific services. You can only do that with a special tax and a two-thirds voting requirement. So this would be a simple majority. It would be available for any general fund purpose.
Okay. And is there a sunset on this? No. No, so this would be a tax for eternity.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to find is that although we can't be specific, I think Miguel mentioned public safety in one of his comments. How can we give guidance to the public to understand where our priorities are without moving it from a 50 plus one to a two-thirds?
Well, I think clearly you have given the public guidance on where your priorities are. The public safety budget is now 72% of the entire general fund budget. Now, clearly through the annual budgeting process, you again reestablish your priorities going forward. There may be ordinances and other things you can do that directs the expenditures of that money to further your policy to invest in public safety. But again, the measure itself needs to be available for any general fund purpose, or it would require a two-thirds vote.
Go ahead, Miguel.
I agree with what the CLA indicated, and in addition to public safety, one of the things that we're going to be recommending prior to the election is that in terms of establishing the kind of budget stabilization fund to capture any additional revenue that goes beyond the trend line. The reason why that's important is that it allows the city to generate a source of funding for one-time expenditures, particularly our roads, our sidewalks, our infrastructure. And so while that's not specifically in the ballot measure, it is an action that your council could take to give the public an indication of the kind of priorities beyond public safety.
Okay. The one thing, and this is something that's come up over and over, people have heard this term, the structural deficit. They've heard the term about reserve funds and rainy day funds, infrastructure, but it doesn't seem like we ever get to those. And there are those who believe that our efforts to deal with public safety, we're never going to be able to sustain what we already have. And what they're fearful of is you create a tax that later evaporates on these existing issues, and their trees, sidewalks, and other things will be secondary or won't be mentioned. And so I would just ask, as we develop those ads and things in the future, that there's a way that you can plug in that considerations, maybe not directed the funds, but consideration has to be for people to understand that one day they may get a tree trimmed, and one day they may get a sidewalk repaired, and one day they may not ever have to hear structural deficit again.
Thank you,
Councilor
that's correct.
Parks. Please answer.
Yeah, until this city finally reached the 5% reserve fund, and we're hopeful we'll finally get there this year. We're just a hair away from it. Once you reach the 5% reserve, you lock the key, you lock it, and then you basically throw away the key and protect those source of dollars for an emergency. Then beyond that, then the next goal is to eliminate the structural deficit, which this will come a long way in doing. It doesn't get us 100% there, but it gets us a significant way there. And then once that's achieved, then you can start building on the Budget Stabilization Fund and other funds to start funding capital and infrastructure.
Councilor Parks, did you get your questions answered? Okay. Councilor Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to speak first to where we've been and what we're looking forward to in the next couple of years. First, I think our Council President eloquently stated a number of the steps that have been taken by this Council and by the Mayor, by the CAO and CLA to try to address some of the structural deficit problems that we've had and the deficits that we've faced. And those steps include the elimination of 5,000 positions, bringing us to the smallest workforce since Tom Bradley was mayor. Consolidation of departments, elimination of departments, use of public-private partnerships, significantly increased contributions by our employees to their pensions, to their retiree health care, and further pension reform that we've just approved. So there have been significant steps taken, and as a result of those steps, next year's deficit, which was projected to be just 3 or 4 years ago, was projected to be $1.3 billion, has been reduced now, but not eliminated. And next year, we still face a deficit of over $200 million. The year after that, we face a deficit projected to be over $300 million. So, although there are promising signs with the improvement of the economy and improvement in our revenues, it's clearly the case that we have to take additional significant measures to bridge those deficits for the coming years. And I think to Mr. Park's point about showing our priority to public safety, the simple truth is more than two-thirds of our general fund discretionary budget is spent on public safety today. And as you all know, the mayor had proposed 209 civilian layoffs in this year's budget, which we were able to at least temporarily defer. 80% of those positions are in public safety, police and fire civilian positions. The mayor has also proposed 50 layoffs of our deputy city attorneys, another public safety function, which I think we just have to be cognizant of. There is no place left other than public safety to make significant reductions in. And any significant reductions that we make will necessarily affect public safety. And by the way, on that point of the city attorneys, we will be discussing that further during the FSR, but I'm going to propose that those layoff proposals be re-referred to the Budget and Finance Committee when we discuss the FSR. I just want everyone to know that that's going to be my recommendation. So the point in this is that unless we have new revenue sources, there is simply no way that we can make cuts next year, let alone the year after that, that will not significantly affect public safety. And I think we have representatives of the police department here. I think it would be appropriate to ask them to come forward now, because as you all heard, Chief Beck was quite clear in saying that without a new revenue source, there would inevitably be layoffs of police officers in this city. And so I'd like our police department representatives to speak to the likely impacts of going forward next year and addressing the existing budget deficit without a new revenue source. What would be the likely impacts on the Los Angeles Police Department?
Good morning, Sandy Jo MacArthur, Office of Administrative Services. As you've seen, I've been at the table for the last 18 months working very closely with the CLA and the CAO's office and all of you to try to figure out how to have some substantial impacts that'll be long-term in the police department's budget. We've worked really closely over the last 18 months, and we have been able to eliminate many positions within the police department. As you all know, staying away from eliminating any sworn positions at this point. The chief, as well as all of us, are very concerned that any further cuts we're not going to be able to sustain public safety as we know it today in the budget, which is why the chief came out aligned with the CAO and the mayor in what his concerns are about our future for public safety and his belief that we need to have this tax that is primarily dedicated to public safety, not just the police department, but public safety for the city of Los Angeles. We are continuing to work with the CAO to make those changes, but right now we're to the point where we really going forward with next year's budget, we're going to be significantly impacted for any types of cuts, whether it's sworn or civilian. So we are aligned with the CAO's office and the mayor's office in terms of the need for the sales tax. Public safety is not a revenue-generating department. That's just not what we do. As we all have seen throughout history, when you ask a police department or public safety to be revenue generating, you have a lot of concerns that we've been able to keep out of the police department for many, many years. So it's hard for us to compete with revenue generating departments. So that's where we stand today. We do believe that we have worked, some of our unions have taken some of the cuts. I know it doesn't sound like they have, but we have. Our new officers are making 20% less than the the average salary throughout the state of California. We've worked closely with the CAO's office on the pension reform, as has been indicated already, and we have worked very closely in eliminating positions within the police department on the civilian side of the shop. And we're continuing to work with the CAO's office on that as we're working through the existing budget we have today.
Thank you very much. Our next member on the queue is Councilor Perry, followed by Councilor Rosendahl.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My concern is that we have to communicate with the public. Now the argument is already put out there for public consumption that without this increase that we'll have layoffs in the police department. That is an impression that's already been created. So the argument seems to be pivoting from there. But what I want to know is how do we demonstrate clearly to the public that an increase in sales tax is in their best interest without specific language in the measure to ensure that the public is actually getting what they believe they are voting for and need? And then what would that language look like? I think we need to clarify language that says exactly this increased revenue would protect city services that voters care about, like police and fire, and lack of that, I don't really understand. Now, the abandonment of the documentary transfer tax is no surprise. Mr. Wesson even said that it was polling at ridiculously low numbers. So, you know, that one's not a surprise, and it would have chilling effect on the real estate market. But what I want to know is the effect, Mr. Santana, if you can tell me, I'll give you 4 quick questions, and then, or actually 3. The effect of instituting a salary freeze. What is the cost of employee raises for next year? And if balance that cost of that potential salary increase for next year, if this tax passed, then there would be no incentive for employees to freeze their salaries or give up raises. Is that not correct?
As you know, we have a number of labor contracts. The coalition represents 70% of the civilian workforce. Their contract expires at the end of the next year's fiscal year. In order for us to change the structure of the COLAs and the elements of that agreement, they have to agree to reopen up that contract. They've already done so twice, and this year we asked again, and they refused to do that. The fact of the matter is that even if this measure passes, the city continues to confront an additional $100 million shortfall the following year. And while it will certainly stabilize our outlook, there will still be a gap. And the best way to address that gap is by a combination of some reductions, and there could be a handful left in non-essential services, but continued discussion with labor to mitigate that final shortfall that we'll be confronted with.
Okay. Thank you. Santana, we have Councilman Rosendahl, then Councilman Labange.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First, Mr. Krikorian, I appreciate very much your desire to take the 159 police and the 50 city attorneys back to committee for further review. And for the record, I want to make it very clear, I will not support that, period, because those 159 civilians, frankly, if they leave, then officers who are active will be sitting at their desks. So I just want to make that statement. Also, the city attorneys bring in money and they solve problems, and they're a critical part of our policing process. So I'm delighted, Mr. Krikorian. But this is for you, Mr. Wesson. I really appreciate your leadership on this. Look, I'm a progressive, but this is regressive in one sense of the word. But the truth of the matter is, what it will do is give us $220 million that we desperately need. The big thing will be the campaign for the March ballot, so people understand that this is across the board and it impacts all of us. And by impacting all of us, everybody's part of the solution. The problem with the other ones, which are obvious to me in my district, they'd throw me out on a rail if I talked about a parcel tax or increased parking or modified real property. I mean, I know my people. I love them. But they're very clear that they would be impacted dramatically. So from that perspective, it's also a very good thing for me. But I look forward to further leadership as we deal with these other issues. But what you demonstrated with all of us is that you're a true leader. You are somebody that we all respect. And I look forward to this being on the ballot and the people voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Labange, followed by Councilman Corrales.
Members, I've been around since 1976. When did you get here, Bach? You know, whatever it was. And the first thing that happened in Prop 13, you were 2 years old, Joe? Oh, God. Anyway, Prop 13, the biggest effect that the public saw is they went from 5 members on an engine and on a truck down. There were 12 in a task force, then they went down to 10. At a local engine house, it went to 5. And I think 4 or 8 painters actually got laid off. There was a lot of fallback. It wasn't the crisis that we're in now, the earthquake that we're in now. And I mentioned earthquake. When the earthquake does come, because it will come again in Southern California, how are we going to be prepared unless we're a solid organization? This effort here to call for this sales tax increase will give us the bridge that we need to keep the city together. To keep the city together in services. You can already see right now, if it wasn't for bids, where would we be? If it wasn't for the bids of the Central City, that extra work that the property owners are paying for. If it wasn't the bids in Hollywood, North Hollywood, throughout the city, property owners are taxing themselves to get services that we cannot provide anymore, which are key to this. And I know no one likes this, but it's an investment. I don't want to see less police officers. At a time, in a challenging time, when the state is unloading individuals who may have not done all their time and not been corrected in their ills and given a way forward in the job market that we're in. So this is an investment, if I could say that. People don't like the word tax, but it's an investment. Think of the people who invested in this city that built the bridges in the 1920s. That money didn't come from anywhere but from the people of Los Angeles. Think of the people who built these monuments, whether it's these great buildings that people use or the great roads that they once drove on. We had the greatest roads in the world, but we stopped. So members, I stand to support this, but also realize these other avenues that are around. We have to re-engineer, Mr. more of Mr. Santana, and you've been very good at discussing that. Members, we got to look at re-engineering things that we have done and ways that we could do a more efficient job and ways that we can make the dollar that the people give us go longer. So I just wanted to rise and ask for an aye vote on this message here because it does make a difference. And some people, I have border cities. I have Burbank and Glendale on my border, West Hollywood. I think it will be worse if we don't have this here, that more people will go other places, not come to Los Angeles, if we do not have this bridge necessary to improve and continue the services that Los Angeles needs.
Thank you, Councilor LaBonge. Councilor Koretz, then followed by Councilor Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there are a lot of reasons to go this route. They've all been discussed to some degree. Number one, the other things we're considering aren't viable. They have no chance of passing for the most part. More importantly, there's such small amounts of money that they don't significantly pave the way towards solving the problem that our economy has given us. And I think the sales tax is also acceptable to so many people because it's not heavily felt. It's not like a transfer tax which only hits some people, but when it hits them hard. If you buy something for $100, it costs you 50 cents. Do you really notice it or think about it? Not really. And this really dramatically will impact public safety. And public safety is not just police, which has been cut dramatically, not in terms of number of sworn officers, but in terms of civilians and overtime. It doesn't just impact the fire department, which has been undercut to the point where some of us have worried about safety of people in emergency response. There's also the city attorney's office. If you arrest people but you don't have the money to prosecute them, you are harming public safety. It also includes park and recreation. I mean, yes, it provides recreation, but it provides a place for kids to go, and when they don't have as much access to parks and recreation programs, many of them get into more trouble and your crime goes up. The same true with libraries, to a lesser degree with transportation safety, street lighting, street repair. Just about everything in our budget impacts public safety and people's lives. And the shortfall we start every year with, as we cut more and more staff and more services, I don't think this is what the people of Los Angeles want. I think what they want is a high enough level of services to find satisfactory, to feel safe, and I think this sales tax will be what will do that. It still doesn't get us all the way. I think if we tried to get all the way with the sales tax, it would be burdensome. I think this is the right compromise. I don't think it'll cause any harm to the residents of Los Angeles, but it will do a lot of good for those residents and for the city.
Thank you. Councilor Parks.
Thank you. Let me just ask a couple of more questions. Is that one of the things, and again, we've had a great number of calls on this, and people kind of sense that there's a need, but the growing issue appears to be they're concerned about whether we're going to change the way we do business or we're going to commit to certain things. And I would hope that as we go through the things that you're recommending on the issue of the convention center, that we not do what the state has done, ask for tons of money, and then 5 years later said, give me a ton more. And if we don't show people that this is going to be used appropriately and it's going to be balanced in the approach, it's my judgment we will never get to ask them again. And so whatever things that we put together to support it, I think it's got to be broadly done. And as we had one of these, and Jerry remember this, that we had one several years ago where we used an ad that basically showed people they're going to be pillaged and raped and things like that. That's not the way to go either. I mean, so we really need a balanced approach that gives those who are willing to vote an idea that they have some hope that they're going to get a sidewalk, a tree, an alley fixed, in addition to public safety. Their libraries are going to be taken care of, their rec and parks, and those are things that are important to them. And in many communities, they're as equally important as having a police officer drive down the street to have these events and activities going on in the community. So whatever way we can frame that and be able to articulate how protective you're going to be with this $200 million a year so that it just doesn't go up in smoke. And as you know, with this budget, $200 million can go up in smoke very quickly. And so the key is, how do you guarantee people that it's going to be well managed and over the life of this additional revenue? And we're not going to be coming back in 3 or 4 years and say, oops, that's now part of another structural deficit. So that's all I ask as you look forward.
Thank you, Councilman Parks. Councilmember Perry.
Thank you again. I just want to leave you with this thought. My concern again is that the proposed language does not clarify exactly what this increased revenue would protect in city services, and I guess I'm reiterating what Mr. Parks just said. It doesn't emphasize the services that the voters care about, like fire and police. I think if we're going to do something like this, we have to mean what we say and say what we do. But in my opinion, at this point, this is a regressive tax, and it would cause other businesses to reconsider either coming here or possibly cause them to leave. This comes on the heels of a state tax increase. And while I understand others have different opinions, I still think, and I'm going to hold on to that we have to go show good faith to our residents, be truthful to our employees about where we stand, and I don't think this is going to be the answer.
Thank you, Councilmember Perry. Councilor Labange.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of questions on what Ms. Perry said. Could these go, could you say there that they would go to those, and no disrespect to the fire chiefs who were here, but I was at a firehouse last night and I asked the firemen, are there too many chiefs? And the fireman told me, yeah, there's too many chiefs. So no disrespect, chiefs, but could there be a level that say they go for under lieutenant or under, captains or community service? Could there be some direction for that? I hear you not liking that, Mr. Krekorian, but I think, does that make sense? Could it, for park hours, can there be something like that?
As the CLA indicated, that the law in which you're working on establishes that if it's a general purpose tax, in other words, not directed to a specific service or product or outcome, then it requires 50% plus one. Your council could choose to make it much more narrow and delineate very specifically the kind of services that it would go to. That would trigger the requirement to make it a 2/3 vote.
For the specific on that. And the last thing too, Mr. CAO, I think the city attorneys who work in priority departments should work full time and not be furloughed. The departments, the harbor, the airport will pay them. And also, members, just as time has passed, so has the arms and branches of trees. And trees have now grown into traffic lights, into signs, into areas. We have to address our trees, our urban forest, and give them a trim so that they don't cause the other pain that happens when we don't trim trees and there's accidents, when we don't stripe streets after paving and there are accidents and things of this nature here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Councilor Labange. I think you pointed to your trim, right? Okay, good. All right. Councilor Krekorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to speak a moment on the issue of where the money's going, because that's been raised a number of times. I mean, we've discussed public safety because that's what the general fund is spent on. 2/3 of the general fund goes to public safety. But the ballot title and question for the proposed measure is quite clearly not limited to public safety. It says that the purposes of the measure are to offset severe and repeated state cuts and provide funding for 911 emergency response services, maintaining firefighter, paramedic, and police officer staffing levels, continuing community policing, senior services, after-school gang and drug prevention programs, repairing potholes and sidewalks, and other general municipal services. So necessarily, this has to be funding that goes into the general fund to be spent on general fund responsibilities. I do want to just propose, Mr. President, one friendly amendment, technical matter, I guess, but in the ballot title, where it says neighborhood public safety and vital city services funding, I'd like to insert the words "and accountability." And then in the parenthetical that just says sales tax, it should read parentheses generally referred to as sales tax.
Okay.
So if that's acceptable as a friendly amendment. A couple quick points. First of all, I think a lot of people look at the large sales tax that Californians pay now and that people in Los Angeles County pay now. They think that's a ton of money. How come the city isn't doing more with all of that sales tax revenue? So first, I'd like to just make clear, Mr. Santana, how much of the sales tax right now does the city of Los Angeles receive?
About 0.75.
So less than a penny. 3/4 of a penny of the sales tax that you pay comes to the city. The rest goes to Sacramento and elsewhere. Now, I just want to close my comments or follow up with my earlier comments by saying we've already taken a number of very difficult steps to reduce our budget deficit. And our constituents, folks, feel that every day. You all get the same calls that I do about, slower services, about reduction in services in parks, about reduced hours, about delays in getting street repairs and sidewalk repairs, all of those things. And I think it's just untenable to ask our constituents to give up any more services than they already have. Right now, we're teetering on an edge of some of these services that are not being provided, having ruinous effects on the city for a generation or more to come. And we have to start restoring some of those services. At least we have to stop the bleeding and not cut them anymore. And I would say that while I'm concerned, as everybody else is, about a sales tax increase, as modest as this one is, any sales tax increase in a difficult economy, of course we got to be concerned about the impact on jobs and on small businesses. But I'll tell you that reductions in services affect small businesses as well. When this city doesn't function, when you can't drive on the streets, when you can't walk on the sidewalk, when we're laying our employees off and putting them on the welfare rolls, that affects jobs, and that affects our economy, and that affects our city's friendliness to business as well. So I'd say that this is a modest step forward that will allow us to continue to function as a city and eventually allow us to start to restore some of the services that our constituents deserve. Our vote today just gives our constituents the opportunity to make the decision. Don't we owe them at least that? In light of all that they've been through, all of the service reductions that they've received right now, don't we at least owe it to our constituents to give them the opportunity to weigh in and say yes or no? I'm willing to pay the sales tax or I'm not. That's what the measure is before you today. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Councilman.
Susie, Mr. President, a new ordinance with the amendments as stated by Mr. Krikorian has been circulated.
Okay, has been circulated and has been received by all the council members, and we have Councilman Alarcon.
Council members, I don't have a problem with supporting the sales tax measure. I wish we didn't have to do it, as all of us. I think that's a fair statement that all of us can make. But I question this whole notion of public safety being limited to the police department. And when we have lawsuits totaling $3 million every year for trip and falls on sidewalks, how can that not be defined as a public safety issue? And yet we can continue to cut back the staff that fix those cracked sidewalks. When we have trees that are falling, we had a case just recently where a tree fell on a house after numerous complaints by that constituent. The tree fell on the house and a woman was severely injured. The house was destroyed and we paid for the cost of replacement and much more. Medical costs are still being negotiated, and how could that not be considered a public safety issue? So if we're going to get real about the needs of our constituents and the role of city government, then we have to get off this notion that the police department is the only public safety element of the services we provide, because it isn't. And the analysis that we get that continues to lead us in that direction is skewing our view and obscuring our view of the realities of what city governments are supposed to do. We're supposed to fix the trees. We're supposed to fix the sidewalks. We're supposed to prevent people from getting injured. Yes, that's what the police department does, but it's what a lot of other departments do as well. Our transportation department is a public safety department. What it does prevents lives from dying. So, as we move forward, we have to do this. There's no way out of it. And, you know, what good is it if we put something on the ballot that's not going to pass, whether it's more progressive or not? It doesn't provide anything if it's not going to pass. So, notwithstanding the regressive nature of a sales tax, it's our only option, I think, in reality. I only hope that in the future, as decisions are made, that we get off of this political rhetoric about saving the police department and get to the general business of providing the quality of life that our constituency needs and deserves. And that means we have to restore services in transportation, restore services in building and safety, restore services in public works across the board, and all the other departments that truly also affect our ability to make our constituents safe. And nobody seems to want to have that discussion because it might be difficult to balance the issues of a constrained police department and the issues of the other types of public safety.
Please check.
But I just thought I should mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Krikorian?
I'm done.
To close? Okay. All right. So, seeing no one else on the queue, with all the amendments in place, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 4 noes.
Okay.
That item will be held over for 1 week to November 20th.
All right. Held over for November 20th. Okay. Okay. Mr. City Attorney, the items that are in the balance, we can refer them back to committee?
Can we? Mr. Parks, did you want to speak on 4? Because we were going to refer everything.
Yeah, I would just like to speak briefly on 4, and then on the others, just make a recommendation to go back to committee. But I'd like to be able to say, can we bring them back before the deadline for May to be reconsidered?
Okay.
Okay, but I'd just like to speak on 4.
Let's go to item number 4. We do have cards on 4 as well, so let's look at the cards. Poll has been held. Public hearing has been held, so we don't have to go to the cards. So we have item 4 before us. Councilor Parks.
Thank you very much. I would just ask on item 4 that we ask the CLA and the CAO to explore as in-depth as they can this whole issue and refining the equity issues of how these funds might be spent if they go on the ballot and we get it approved. That we also consider in a version of this ordinance that we limit the related costs to the current expenditure categories that are in play, so they can't be expanded, and that this parcel tax, if it moves forward, is for the exclusive use of park services and programs and not to be used for related costs, and that the annual program be reviewed and approved by the council during this budget process if it's approved. So those would be directions on that item, and I'd recommend on item 4 and 5 and 6 go back to committee, but that we get an opportunity to hear all of them again before the expiration date for the May election.
Yes, we should be able to schedule that. Okay, so that includes item number 4. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote. 14 ayes.
14 ayes.
Okay.
And that item will be referred back to the Rules Committee.
All right. Councilmember Zine, you're out of order. Councilmember Zine?
Miguel is,
All right.
there he is right there.
So, next item, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, just for the record, for items 5 and 6 per the request was also to refer those items as well to the Rules Committee.
Okay. If there's no objection, that'll be so ordered.
And there was a request to send item 3, 8, and 9 forthwith.
Okay, that will be forthwith.
That takes council to item 11.
Item 11. Okay, we have quite a few cards on this item. We already had public comment on these. All right, so we do have several folks on the queue. Councilor Krikorian.
Mr. President, before we hear the report on the FSR and before the public speaks, I just wanted to make clear that when the Budget and Finance Committee referred the FSR to the Council, we referred the entire FSR recommending its approval with the exception of the items relating to city attorney layoffs, paragraphs number 12, 13, and 14, which were submitted without the recommendation of the Budget and Finance Committee. I would move at this time that those items be re-referred back to the Budget and Finance Committee and not be considered by the Council at this time, so that we can proceed with the FSR with the exception of those provisions that would impact the city attorneys, paragraphs 12, 13, and 14. That would be my motion.
Is there no objection?
Is there a second to the motion?
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Councilor Rosendahl?
Thank you.
I seconded it.
Because there's a second, there's an objection. So let's vote on the motion. And this is the amendment? Okay, so Councilmember Zine.
Can you just briefly explain the amendment?
Madam Clerk, to see what's in front of us.
Mr. Corn?
Yes. There was a proposal, as you all know, to reduce costs related to the city attorney's office through, among other things, the layoff of city attorney positions. Those three proposals, paragraphs 12, 13, and 14 in your FSR, were not advanced with a recommendation by the Budget and Finance Committee. So it was the Budget and Finance Committee's recommendation to approve the FSR in its entirety with the exception of those three recommendations, which we submitted to Council without recommendation. At this time, I would ask that the Council not even consider those three items, but rather it be re-referred to the Budget and Finance Committee, where we will have additional discussion about it. But it's my intention that we not move forward with city attorney position reductions at this time.
But go forward with the other items.
Sorry?
Go forward.
Go forth with all of the other items other than those three items that impact the city attorney's position. That would be my motion.
And there was a second to the motion?
There was.
And there was an objection from Councilor Rosendahl. Do you still object, Councilor Rosendahl?
Yeah, I just want to be clear on this. I am against the layoff of civilians in the police department. I want to get a chance to discuss that and point out why. I know it's gone from 159 to 109, but I'd like to talk to the police department about that, because I don't want an active duty, healthy cop sitting in a civilian job. Now, if this is the right discussion time, great. If it's not, I can't vote just on the city attorneys, which I totally agree. They need those 50 people, and it was compelling.
So let's have an answer from Councilor Krikorian to address that concern.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. And just to clarify the distinction between the two categories of things, these three items regarding the city attorneys are affirmative recommendations in the FSR, which we are pulling out. The issue of the other civilian layoffs that were previously part of this year's budget, we were able to fund those positions for half of the year.
I know.
The funding for those positions runs out in the middle of the fiscal year. So without further affirmative action, those positions would proceed to layoff. That's not a recommendation that's in the FSR now that would be dealt with one way or the other unless someone brings it forward. I think it's a perfectly appropriate thing for you to discuss in the context of the FSR, but it's not the subject of my motion because my motion addresses only these 3 affirmative recommendations of the FSR.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I don't want us to be thinking that that's the only solution going forward. Because
well, let's do this,
the police
Councilor
issue
Rosendahl.
was a big one for me.
I understand. Let's do this. So there's been a motion, it's been seconded. Let's go through the discussion. There's cards that have been submitted, but we already had a public hearing. Unless it's the body's wish to open up the public hearing again. If it's not, we can move right to the queue. Seeing no desire to open the public comment, then we'll go to the queue. Councilor Rosendahl, then Councilor Huizar. You're first on the queue.
Thank you very much. Could I ask the Chief to come on up for a quick discussion, and also the CLA and CAO to come on up too? Look, I want to make it clear, public safety is all of our #1 concern, and I'm very delighted that the City Attorney's Office is getting the support it is for the 50 positions. But I have been around this now for 7 years on this Budget Committee, and I've seen able-bodied officers who aren't on the street doing what they're doing, but sitting in civilian jobs. And that's because the jobs are important jobs that need to be filled. Somebody has to do it. I also know from an economic standpoint, it's almost 50 cents on the dollar to have a civilian when you add up all the costs versus a fully dressed, healthy officer. I don't want officers sitting in those civilian jobs, period. And if it means the 10,000 number that the mayor thinks is magic, it's not magic. What's magic is the number of officers out there doing public safety, not sitting at the desk, sitting there as clerks and answering phones. Chief, I'd like your response to what I just said, and the CLA and CAO to respond as well. Please, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sandy Jo MacArthur, Office of Administrative Services, Police Department. As you have voiced in the past, and several other individuals who sit on the council, you've been concerned about the issue of us letting our civilian, or not letting them, but having the civilians sitting on the chopping block for layoffs. The department has made a commitment that we would not allow public safety from a police department's perspective to suffer. We did tell you that we were concerned that some of the public service side of the shop would suffer as we let civilians go. As we started to work through this year's budget issues where it called for in July 1, the 159 layoffs, the CAO's office has worked diligently with us to minimize the numbers by since you funded for 6 months, as people retire, we're able to cut those positions and not cut people who are sitting in current positions. So we've been able to do that, and we've worked through year to date. I believe we're down to 109. What we do, we look at what position then we eliminate, because we do need that we need that change, the substantive change for the future, so we don't have additional people missing from this police department that are critical. So we actually have been able to slowly adjust and not put officers in seats. When you have the call for mass layoffs, that's when we don't know how to make those adjustments. And so the CAO's office has allowed us to make those slow adjustments in every department or every division within the city, so that we have not yet had to take able-bodied officers off the street and put them in positions for the civilians. The one area of exception, as you all know, is our 89 officers who are in the jail. And I know that is a bone of contention for many people. But because of the cuts that we've had to endure, we just have not been able to hire any jailers. We've asked in the budget, and we've not been able to get those positions for all the reasons you already know. So the way we've been working at this budgetary year from July on has allowed us to make changes, because, as you know, our department has a variety of vacancies throughout the department that we've already adjusted. So this helps us to do it in a slower manner, yet give the city the change that we need for the future. And our goal is not to ever put an able-bodied police officer in a civilian position. That would be our ultimate goal.
I appreciate your articulation, Chief. You're really good, and I know that This is a troubling issue for all of us. I'm glad we're down to 109. One of the questions I would have, when it was 159, that's 50 that have disappeared. Are any of those 50 now being serviced by a fully,
Councilor Rosendahl, please check your time.
yeah, fully,
you're
by an
over.
officer?
The one positions that, the only positions that
In
are...
the jail.
Are the jail, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'll come back again. Thank you.
Please. Well, okay, unless there's no objection, let's move with the amendments and the motion has been seconded to revert items 12, 13, and 14 back to Budget and Finance Committee. And that is the action before us.
Mr. President.
And then we'll continue the dialogue. But let's move those 3 items. Right, we'll have discussion. Just items 12, 13, and 14. We'll revert back to Budget and Finance. And that's the action before us. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
14 ayes. So those items have been moved back to Budget and Finance. That leaves the balance of the issues in front of us. Councilor Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a technical amendment, if I could, on item number 7, that concerns Council District 14 General City Purposes Fund. That number should be 75,000, increase from 50,000 to 75,000, please.
Okay. We'll have that correction.
Yes, I believe there's a second.
Second.
Okay, there's a second on that amendment.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
We have Councilman Alarcon on the queue.
Council members, I don't think it's any secret. I don't like laying off city employees unless it's absolutely necessary. And I concur with Mr. Rosendahl. I don't understand why we're considering one group for layoffs, and whether or not there's an action item before us or not. The fact is, we are moving forward with laying off 209 positions because we didn't fund it. So you can't avoid the reality that that is one of the moving parts that is under consideration as we look at this financial status report. So I'm looking at how can we save some of those positions, if not all of them. And looking at the unappropriated balance, I understand the 209 positions cost how much? What would that save us?
About 16 million. If I could clarify.
How much?
16 million. If I could clarify.
And how much will we have to pay in unemployment benefits?
The savings are included in that figure. If I could clarify, it's no longer 209 positions. The number of filled position has been reduced to 112.
Okay.
It's no longer, the following departments will experience no layoffs that were originally proposed in your budget: Animal Services, ITA, GSD, and Street Services. The layoffs that were adopted in the budget are no longer. Now that they're now only limited to the police department and to personnel.
Okay, and then on the unappropriated balance, since many of these positions were not filled, we saved some of the $8 million that was allocated for that purpose. So how? And I understand there's 5.7 million remaining to finish out the 6-month period. But we're going to be way short of that because many of those positions are unfilled. In fact, more than half of them. So the question I have is, why not use the savings to keep people employed?
Because in addition to the deficit that the budget already inherently had, the city is currently facing a $16 million deficit due to over expenditures in specific departments. And so we're starting the year off already behind, even assuming that those layoffs proceed forward.
And there's 27.8 million in the unappropriated balance. How much of that money is remaining?
Do you know? Go ahead and answer.
But right now, there's the 27 that's left in the UB. There was actually $3 million that was moved out of that. Another $9 million is for petroleum. So we can look at the balance of the items remaining there. Though we take some of that money, then most likely we'll create shortfalls elsewhere. like I mentioned, $9 million is simply for petroleum and GSD, and certainly they're reporting they're going to need all of that given where prices have been recently with fuel.
Okay, but there's no analysis on that.
Please check your time, Councilor Alarcon.
I'll press my button again.
Okay, sir. Would you like to answer his question? Last question?
We've looked at all the items, and thus far all the items working with departments are going to be needed to basically there'll be zero left other than the one UB item.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Labange, then followed by Councilor Perry.
Mr. Krikorian, if I could just make this statement, you could hear it, Mr. CAO. When this goes back to the committee, please ask that the prepared departments, Water, Power, Harbor, and Airport, their general managers send you a letter to guarantee funding for the city attorneys who work and put that funding up front. We could lose opportunities to be successful and defend the city if we don't have a full team on the field. Right now, because of furloughs, our city attorneys are not working side by side with the departments that they represent at the airports, at the harbor, and at Water and Power. So if you could look at that, I'd appreciate it, Mr. CEO, and find a way to get them to work.
It's important to point out that the furlough program in the city attorney's office has been managed by the city attorney, and so how they implement the furloughs, who receives furloughs, and who's exempted from furloughs is established by the city attorney. In the rest of the city family, when the rest of the city was being furloughed, if a position was 90% or more funded, including related costs, by an outside non-general fund source, that position was automatically exempted from furloughs. And so, but that final decision as to how to furlough would be made by the city attorney.
And I'll try to encourage the city attorney to do that because these departments need it, whether it's in Owen Valley issues or other issues across the globe, which Water Power is involved in, the airport and the harbor. And lastly, I did want to mention too, as we look forward in these reports, these are actual reports that we get of real time and analysis that has taken place here. I do want to mention, when we talk about public safety, Mr. Alarcon made an eloquent speech. It was a police captain from Wilshire Division who read the Atlantic Monthly article in 1982 called Broken Windows, which is in the foundation in the bloodstreams, as you could talk to the man to your left right there, the senior lead officer. Broken windows is a big part of the Los Angeles Police Department as they have this umbrella for public safety. I wanted to mention that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Perry, followed by Councilor Koretz.
Quick question, a couple of questions for Mr. Santana. Tell me, I'm looking at the report, and tell me why the city attorneys were taken off the list, and why were they there in the first place?
The context of our recommendation is that the city attorneys are the only bargaining unit left in the entire city that's still experiencing furloughs. The reason they're still being furloughed is because they have not agreed to make the contribution towards retiree health care or to provide a number of other concessions that most other city employees have already done. Your budget, the mayor's budget, had furloughs instead of layoffs because the city attorney requested that as a way of maintaining services in the department, the impact of furloughs would be less than if there would be layoffs. Since your budget was adopted, there was a lawsuit filed by the City Attorney Associations against furloughs. And so it is our recommendation that ideally we negotiate an alternative to both layoffs and furloughs. We began that process immediately after Thanksgiving through a third-party magistrate that has been appointed by the court to try to reach a resolution to this issue. If we do not reach resolution, it is our recommendation that the city end furlough starting January 1st, having to address that shortfall with the only tool available to you, which is unfortunately layoffs.
Okay, so now that's the explanation as to why they're taken off the list for now, pending the outcome.
My expectation, Mr. Krikorian could certainly speak to that, is that it allows during the time that this FSR gets adopted and the beginning of the calendar year, we will be negotiating with the City Attorney Association for an alternative solution to either layoffs and furloughs.
Now, another question about police overtime. Future obligations or future overtime was deferred or pushed over into the upcoming fiscal year. And I believe that the obligation has grown from $40 million to $109 million. Is that correct?
Well, the truth is, and I could certainly have the department speak on this issue, the use of overtime has actually gone down since what was adopted, essentially eliminated cash overtime and instead allowed an employee to bank those hours in time. The department has actually been quite effective in requiring officers to take the time off. So they've been burning down the time that the banks that they were building. It's also important to point out that while the bank account for the city has grown, it doesn't get paid off all in one day. It gets paid off, it gets built during the term of someone's career, and it gets burned during that same term. And so, whatever bank remains gets paid at the time that that person retires. And this is a relatively young workforce, that most of which were actually hired under this mayor. So at the end of the day, the costs will be spread out over an extended period of time to ensure that there isn't a bank that is unmanageable. The chief has been very aggressive in requiring police officers to take mandatory vacation time, which means there is a service impact. There's less officers out on the street, but it avoids having enormous banks. But I could certainly have the department speak more to that.
And then just to clarify, so if it did grow, just in hard numbers, 40 million to what then, if my figure was wrong?
But please check your time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We could get back to you on the specific number. Again, it's hard to pin a particular number because every day it changes. So every day more officers build a bank, and every day more officers burn it off. So it's an evolving number that changes at any given time. But what we can do is provide you a snapshot of what it looks like today, and we'll report back to you on that specific question.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Councilman Koretz, then Councilman Rosendahl.
Actually, I just wanted to clarify what I think was already clarified by Ms. Perry, that the city attorney layoffs are going to be negotiated, and the police civilian layoffs are going back to committee. So neither of those are moving forward, or am I incorrect with that?
Please, Councilman Kukorian, the Chair of Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. The motion that we voted on was to remove paragraphs 12, 13, and 14 from the Budget Committee's recommendations. Those were the recommendations relating to the City Attorney's Office. Those will go back to committee. The other civilian layoffs, this Council already decided on in adopting this year's budget. We also, in that process, preserved funding for 6 months for those positions. During the course of those 6 months, as has been discussed, the list has been significantly reduced through attrition and otherwise. It is now the Budget Committee's recommendation in the report before you to instruct the CAO and the CLA to work with the Personnel Department as they compile the list of filled positions that would be eliminated per the existing adopted budget, and report back with any potential options to achieve a $40 million budget stabilization fund and to preserve the remaining filled positions after all bumping has occurred in order to maintain city services. So the recommendation is to have them go look at that list, look at the bumping impacts, proceed with that process, report back to us about what those impacts will be and what the options are to preserve all of those positions. But as of now, the status quo is that the funding for those positions will run out in the middle of the fiscal year as of December 31st. And so those positions are subject to elimination unless there's a budget adjustment that affirmatively adds to what has already been budgeted or otherwise. Now,
if I could, on my time, ask a quick question of the CAO. My understanding of the discussions in Budget Committee were that we avoided the layoffs for the first 6 months, but that we stated that we had money to save those people for the second 6 months, but we would look at whether there were positions that were more significant in their place, that we had not decided to move forward with those layoffs after the first 6 months?
The action that your body took in adopting the budget kept those positions in place for 6 months, giving those individuals a 6-month lifeline. And as Mr. Krikorian indicated, that number has dramatically been reduced through a number of different efforts from general managers to still achieve their savings target, but protect those specific positions. It's our expectation that there may be some further reduction, but there is...
I have to ask my question again because it's not being answered. My question was, I recall the discussion being that we had enough money to completely avoid the layoffs for the entire year.
That is not correct.
We voted to only not lay off for 6 months, and then to look at what we did with that money in terms of those people for the second 6 months, and that we set aside some of that money to possibly once again save them from layoffs, or choose vacant positions that we might find more valuable and replace them.
There was only enough funding to cover the first 6 months of the fiscal year. It is incorrect to state that there was enough funding to cover a full year.
Please press your button again, Councilman Kuntz. Okay, Councilman Englander and Councilman Rosendahl.
In looking at this, a couple things. One, if you can give us an overview of the fire department as well and where things are ending up, particularly as it relates to the schedule changes for dispatch from the 440. It's estimated that that's another $266,000 a month, and they're claiming, I think, that they have a meet and confer process, is what they've explained in committee, and that it's stuck. And although we budgeted this fiscal year, if we can go through some of that on the department, on the fire department, also on the overtime, the fact that they're over budget, which they should be able to figure out what, because of constant staffing, what their allocation and live within their budget and what it's going to be. The fact that they're, again, over budget on that, how are we going to put some controls in so we make sure that that this doesn't keep occurring? And then I want to talk a little bit about the police department as well.
Well, I certainly would welcome the representative from the fire department to come up here and respond to your specific questions. As you know, there was a huge discussion about this issue before your committee, and it's based on the directive from the chair of the committee. This will be discussed whenever the committee meets on a regular basis. As in terms of the deployment protocols, it is my understanding is the department's intention to abide by the council's direction as early as January of this year. But I certainly welcome the fire department representative to speak.
Okay, if we can have somebody from fire, why they're coming up here on the civilian side of the police department. As you know, I've been adamantly opposed to laying off any civilians in the department. I think it's a grave mistake from my perspective. And particularly since a lot of these are mandated responsibilities that shall be done by the department, a lot of paperwork, timekeeping, things that, quite frankly, even gotta love our cops, but they don't even know how to do half that stuff. They're good in the street, and they're good with people, and they're great at ensuring that we don't have to make arrests because they keep crime down and doing preventative measures and all the things that they do. But the civilians are the backbone of the department. And while it looks like, I think the net of actually filled vacancies is only around 30 or so. Is that what's the final number? Not elimination of positions, but actual people.
You're talking about the current where we are currently with the shifts that we've made?
Currently, no. What's being done now for January 1st?
Currently, January 1st, we are looking, if nothing changes, at laying off 109 civilians within the police department. 2 months ago, we were looking at 159.
Right.
And what we did was we worked together with the CAO to, as people attrited out of the organization, either through retirement, leaving for other agencies, or being terminated, we were able to take that authority and the dollars associated with that authority and to either erase that authority or erase another vacant authority, because we have over 400 vacant authorities in the police department. but we were doing money equivalent because we needed to come up with approximately 9 point.
Yeah, but here's my
Can you
concern.
please check your time, Councilman?
Yeah, just to close this off real quick, and then I'll push my button again for the fire department. But my concern on this is those vacancies, eliminating vacant positions, means that we'll never be able to put people in them. So we can move secretaries and others around to other departments, but we can't move them into the police department where they're desperately needed. And that's what I think we've got to look at a little closer.
And we, just to answer a little bit of that, is we are looking at it. So if we lose a secretary, for example, or a secretary is retired, we may not eliminate that secretary authority, but we have 400 other vacant authorities within the police department. So we look for the dollar equivalent in another vacancy. So it's almost like a three-prong approach to doing exactly what Councilmember Rosenthal has suggested, is not to just eliminate the positions that were on the chopping block originally. We need to look at the adjustments. So we've had some positions that have been vacant for quite some time, and that's where we may remove that position for a permanent elimination. So we're looking at it, and it's much easier for us in the police department to do this as we lose one to move one rather than having a huge number all at one time.
Thank
so
you,
that's
Councilor.
helped us make that adjustment.
Thank you, Councilman Clinton. Okay, please. Thank you, sir. Councilman Rosendahl, then Councilor
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm troubled by the whole notion of removing any civilian that would be replaced with an able-bodied officer. I'm wondering if we could have a report back in a few months instead of anybody hitting a chopping block. Just give us an update. Since the fiscal year ends June 30th, it's now November. Why couldn't we, like in early February, see exactly where we're at? I just am fed up with the idea of an able-bodied cop sitting in a seat that costs us 50 cents on the dollar with a civilian. And as Mr. Englander said, mandated. I mean, these are jobs that have to be done. And I don't want to walk into a police station and see an officer at the desk where the civilian's supposed to be. It's economics at its best to avoid layoffs of civilians. You know, and I love the mayor, and I think we've done a lot of great things in this city. Crime is down. I thank Charlie Beck and his leadership and his team. They've been very helpful to me in my district. It's been phenomenally good what he's done and the people involved in various spots. But I cannot stomach the idea of the buck versus the 50 cents and an able-bodied officer sitting there where you had a clerk before, and the clerk is essential to the mission. So I'll compromise in the sense that I'm not going to vote yes for these cuts, but I'd like a report back if the chair of the Committee of Budget and Finance would say, okay, we'll chill a little bit for another few months and having a status update first week of February, just to take a deep breath and see where we're at. Because if we end up with able-bodied officers in civilian jobs, I think that's irresponsible on our part.
And Councilman, if I could point out that item number 11 in our report, it instructs my office to work with the department to report back and exactly what you said by January 1st. To determine the impacts of these proposed elimination of civilian positions in the police department.
Okay, but I don't want 109 positions all of a sudden disappear. And I don't want somebody saying, well, they retired, but yet boom, 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 and then I mumble, and I walk into that police station and I see an officer that should be on the street sitting in that job. That is not going to be acceptable to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Councilman Alarcon, followed by Councilman Englander.
Council members, I recall back in the day when Joe maybe wasn't 2, but he was maybe 15. The city went through an amazing transition in our police department. We called it the civilianization of the police department. In fact, it was under the Reardon administration. And the CAO promulgated that agenda because it was a cost-saving measure. The fact was that crime was increasing. Crime, we felt that by civilianizing the department for positions that were non-essential as police officers, but essential as an operating department, and getting the police officers that were sitting behind desks out on the street was a critical element to reducing crime. Guess what? That's exactly what happened. we reduce the cost of the police department by civilianizing it. At the same time, we push police officers back onto the streets in hundreds, if not thousands, and in doing so, crime has dropped consistently since doing that, every single year. So I don't get this, that we can place police officers back to cover those civilian positions, somehow save money in doing so when they cost twice as much as civilians, and still cover our needs in the streets in terms of public safety. I'm sorry, folks, but I believe this is a backwards proposal, and it is not dealing with the reality of how to manage the police department in a holistic way.
Mr. Englander.
No, thank you. Well, I think anytime, quite frankly, on Mr. Alarcon's statement on that, anytime we tell the departments what they have to do and which positions they have to eliminate is not managing a department at all. I think general managers, if we have good ones, should be able to manage, and you say, here's your budget, you've got to cut $5 million or $10 million or $25 million, and you figure out why and how. That's what we should be doing. But unfortunately, over the years, under managed hiring, we've had to rein that in because a lot of the departments couldn't manage themselves. Police department and the fire department did a much better job than any other department, quite frankly, and it's done a great job. And under Sandy Jo's leadership, and I got to give her a lot of credit, she works tirelessly and tenaciously to ensure that those public safety protections are afforded, and does a great job with doing more with less than ever. On the fire department, what are we doing on that front to rein in some of those cost controls and actually try to figure out what the real numbers are? And I know you gave us some highlights during the committee, but if you can share some of those with us, where we're at now as well. Appreciate it.
Darren Palacios, Chief Deputy Administrative Operations. Glad you acknowledged that. The $5.1 million that we are short, that is 1% of our budget. So we're meeting our budget 99%. That 1% is an issue. We're teaming with the CAO to impact bargain to quickly move to the 540 schedule at MFC. We've been reporting weekly at Budget and Finance and to Public Safety, and we'll keep you updated as the negotiations and the impact bargaining go. Unfortunately, EERC we're not able to get further directions this morning. In terms of the constant staffing overtime, it's a projection we do at the beginning of the year based on when people exit drop, number of retirements and such. So it's somewhat of a estimation, and we're getting better at it and closer to it. Part of the difficulty is sometimes you have more people leaving sooner out of the exiting drop than we predicted. But we are close, and some of it is we end up with less money in the constant staffing overtime, but an overage in the regular staffing account. And there's transfers that happen all the time. And we predict there's going to be about $3 million left in that other for that transfer over, which puts us around $2 million. So in that, we've done in the years past, we've come to this and let you know what the statuses are. We will, on a bi-weekly basis, every pay period, we are looking at where we are with constant staffing, the trend, and we're going to start producing a report that we're going to push out to the council offices. So every pay period, or every month, you're going to know where we are with that. We will be bringing it to Budget and Finance regularly.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, no more speakers in the queue. We've had public comment on this item, Madam Clerk.
Yes, public comment was held in committee.
Okay, let's open the roll.
This is as amended by Mr. Reserve.
Okay, close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes, 2 noes.
Okay. Now I believe, well, let me ask just to make sure. We've dealt with all of the items on today's agenda, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so now let's go to general public comment. If I could get Arno Sachs, John Walsh, and Marianne Fogler to please come forward. Forthwith on the FSR.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. We're alarmed that your legislation, Mr. Krikorian writes his legislation through the lobbyist for the digital billboards. Mr. Krikorian has an Ask Paul column, which is totally fictional, which appears on the internet, on an patch. In fact, we believe that that is not even the real Mr. Krikorian. It's a double. We don't even know whether the real Mr. Krikorian lives in America. Everything he does is phony. Now, we'd like to point out there's an art installation, a replica of a bus shelter with a homeless person in plaster cast lying in the gutter in front. It's been there for a week now, in front of the Pantages, and the media doesn't want to touch it because it would make Hollywood look bad. Go out and see what's being done there. And we've kept it there, although the Nederlanders wants to tear it down. Kennedy Garcia was shot to death by a policeman. Now, I'm telling you, when Trayvon Martin got shot 3,000 miles away, the black community revolted in L.A. When an Hispanic gets shot to death by the policeman on his back, wearing handcuffs, not a single politician, not a single group of Hispanics say one damn word. And I want to say to all you Hispanics, watch out, because the policeman can kill you in this city, and none of your politicians will give a damn. Now, I want to say to you black people, don't worry. Your black politicians will not let your blood roll on this street. And everyone damn well knows what I mean. And I want you to know Kate Del Castillo, the mayor's girlfriend, come to our website, see her nude pictures, go to Joseph Maylander, HollywoodHighlands.org. For shame. Kennedy Garcia, viva! Shot to death.
Okay, Mr. Walsh. Marianne Fogler, Donna Pearman, Don Jones or Dave Jones? Don Jones.
The reason why the people voted to keep the death penalty in was we don't want any murder taking place against anyone, whether they're American black, American Chinese, American Mexican, and for that matter, for those people that came out from the woodworks hiding and made the election an astounding victory for this Obama, which I don't agree with, but that's what you voted for. They came out. And they are part of the group here that needs to be counted for, and they need to know what the American government is all about and its history, and they need to learn to speak and write and read English fluently so that these people are knowledgeable voters and they know what they're voting on. The fact is they don't want to give politicians so much power. Now, thank God they didn't vote for the appointment of the assessor's office, for example. What else? I just want to say that you need to be very careful how you vote on these matters when you go and vote. I'm not going to be able to come down here all the time. My feet are killing me. My back is bad. I'm having such a hard time, and I want video conferencing returned to the San Fernando Valley. That's why I'm pushing for the half-cent sales tax, Mr. Herb Weston, President. I miss my cats, and I'd like to be able to be with them because I'm in so much pain, and I would regret to say that I'd like to be back at Van Nuys since your Sergeant of Arms told me that I can't have very much accessibility here on the first two aisles here. What kind of accessibility is it for me, Mr. Koretz? I might as well be back in Van Nuys doing video conferencing because the fact of the matter is we could do it very cheap. And the fact of the matter is that the Hyperion treatment plant needs that money because they're going to lose all that money because Department of Water and Power is going to shut off their essential energy that they need to run Hyperion. And that's what we need.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fogler. Donna Pearman, Don Jones, and Dow House Dude, please come forward.
First, since sales tax, we need to spend a little on fund our video conferencings so we can speak out more, speak our mind. What about our safety? Or we can give, we certainly have enough money, so when we can use one of those old fee waivers. Please, thank you for helping the essential city services by having the sales tax. You won't hear that again from me. but we need to do it for all essential city services, not just police and fire. Our streets, lighting, sanitation, especially sanitation. Because what do? If we don't have funding for sanitation, we have chaos. Say yes, sanitation is public safety. Mr. Garcetti, am I missing something? Why did you vote no? Saying ain't so. And more important, it's more important than having meatless Mondays. I'm going to sure I eat meat on Mondays. Anyway, let's see. Anyway, I want to say that I don't agree with. Yeah, diabetics had to have protein, so we don't want to have this meatless Mondays. Anyway, I didn't agree with the Prop J. Not everyone uses rail projects. That's what's different about this sales tax and that one. It's apples and oranges. Prop R and Prop J just use 80% for that money for rail and only 20% on local buses. Everyone needs city services. That's why J didn't get the 2/3 vote. Prop 30 is passed because the school told kids to tell parents to pass 30 or they couldn't go to school. Many people are not informed about propositions. They just listen to radio, TV, or newspapers. And many don't even speak English. Written information given them is limited. Schools needs to have teaching English to those who are limited. Top priority. Proposition 30 won't be used in the classroom. I hate to tell you, so people are going to find that's a mistake. Stop spending so many, they need to stop sending so many empty school buses running around at odd hours.
Thank you, Ms. Pearman. Thank you. So if I can get Don Joe. Oh, Mr. Sachs, I'll call you at the end. I called you earlier. So I've called Mr. Jones and Dow House Dude, followed by Daniel Garcia. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Don Justin Jones, and first thing I want to do is say to Bill Rosendahl, you look marvelous, Bill. You look great. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Rosendahl since the late 70s when I was the founder of the Los Angeles Public Access Corporation, and it's just good to see you back here, the conscience of this body. Thank you very much. Now, I'm here because I want to offer a modest proposal. I've heard a lot of dialogue about raising taxes and everything, but my modest proposal is to collect the money that's owed to you. This is an audit that was done by the state auditor of the Caltrans properties within the city of Los Angeles that shows a $22 million shortfall in revenue that was supposed to have been collected on behalf of the citizens of the city of Los Angeles. This is a wheel at page 14. That shows that 62% of the shortfall revenue, $22 million, should have gone to education as well as the general fund. When I'm in tough trouble, I go to the people that owe me money, and I say, pay me off. I'm asking you to do the same thing. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise to you since I gave out 5 copies of this document to the committee that considered the extension of the 710 freeway, or the tunnel. I think Mr. Huizar would remember that. So far, I've received no phone calls from any of the 5 members on that committee with regard to following this up. What I would like to recommend is that you ask the city attorney to earn some of the money that we're talking about by joining the city auditor and auditing why we're not collecting the $22 million that the state of California owes the city of Los Angeles and why our school kids have to suffer. So that's my modest proposal. Go after the folks that owe you the money before you start to raise taxes on other folks. Thank you very much. And Rosendahl, stay at it, pal.
Okay. No, George, I did not call you yet. George, wait till your name is called. No, you come on, Mr. Dow House Dude. When I call your name, no, you come on now. Dow House Dude. Dow House Dude, followed by Daniel Garcia. So go ahead.
George wants me to help him on his issue.
When he comes back up, you can get up there and help him.
Okay,
so go
thank you. His issue is he needs a little bit of space along the 101 freeway so he can feed people. There's a lot of empty spaces over there. All he needs is a little place where he can bring 2 trailers that he can move immediately if you need the space. But those places have been vacant forever. Help George. Now it's my turn. We all need a place to do business. Everybody needs a place where they are not terrified by taxes or any other reason that is going to make them lose their place. George here is talking about a place that's been vacant forever. I'm talking about all these homes that are vacant right now. If you fill them up and you charge everybody because the places are full, you will come up with more money than you ever had in your stupid city. There is 9 million homes that are empty, and we cannot find a place to fill them up, a way to fill them up. Are we stupid or what? If you have those 9 million homes full of people, you can tax them to death, like you know how to do. But you know what? We should be more progressive and learn how to tax everybody on a flat tax, on the income tax, because that's where the money comes from, the income. And if everybody has a place and everybody's working,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dowhouse Dude. Daniel Garcia, Michael Carrion, George Azarian, and Arnold Sachs. Can we give him the mic, Sergeants? Is there a port of... Oh.
Okay. Thank you, council members and President. I want to share my idea for you. Future tax situation. I have a couple of information. This is all about ballot proposition. Information, more information, more junk mail from the proposition. All of these are proposition junk mail, right? So, my proposition for you is to have a proposition to eliminate all this junk mail and invest in 30% into people money pocket instead of giving it to campaign contribution payments. That would be increasing the budget. Put the money in the budget to contribution for political campaigns and less money to the political campaigns. If you do that, you will have a lot more money in the city than for the business propositions. I think it's very wise to do that. If anybody will agree with me, I guess so. Because there's too much money into campaign and in your pockets. So please, next time that you want to do this, think about the people. Think about how many people can you afford.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, and it's always a pleasure to see you. George, Mr. Dude, you want to get George? Followed by Michael Carrion, followed by Arnold Sachs. Go on, George.
Yes, George needs some place along the 101 freeway so he can put 2 movable carts to feed people. He can remove those carts at any time. Tell him, George.
Yeah. 101 freeway outside all over is empty. For my foundation, 45-6 giving food. Now, very short, I no have room. I gonna put in trailer, no lights, no need the lights, no have electric, no gas, no nothing. But still I can use it for low-income people. People wait the line, big line, all over. I don't know who. Right here. Watch here. I forgot your name.
Mr. Zine.
Zine. Yeah, sure. I very need. People every day ask me, when you gonna start? When you gonna start? A lot of people now is short, come mad, hungry. Why you watch? Take it, watch me. I know I can't talk very good, but me work very hard. We need me no ask you money. Me no ask. I give money, city. I give money all over, little.
George doesn't need anything from you other than the space. He needs no lights, no nothing, no water. He will bring 2 mobile units.
Thank you.
That's what he said.
Thank you, George. And generally, those properties belong to Caltrans. Mr. Sachs? Mr. Sachs? Mr. Arnold Sachs?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. Another very fascinating day in City Council discussion. You would have hoped that you'd have had more public here, especially a discussion regarding a sales tax increase and any of these other tax items. But evidently, the people that you use to bring crowds in when you want cheering crews weren't available to bring in the public to listen to this wonderful discussion regarding increasing fees or taxes. But you neglected also to mention in your list of accomplishments, Mr. President, the fact that you have actually got a chance to give a union a pay raise. And you did mention the exceptions to the pension plan, but when you mentioned them, I think by mistake included DWP. And I don't believe DWP has had their pension program visited, or if it was visited, any changes were voted down since 2 years ago when Councilman Parks was Budget and Finance chair. So the most expensive workers don't really contribute to their pension plan. People got a pay raise, the union got a pay raise of 6%, which you knew was going to happen because you put a cap on the ERIP and then laid off a couple of hundred extra people. But the most important actual part of that whole discussion was the fact the size of the workforce is as small as it's been since Tom Bradley was mayor. So I'm hoping to hear in next year's budget discussion, which is just around the corner, there'll be no need to lay off or have unfilled positions eliminated, because there are no unfilled positions to be eliminated, because we're looking for a sales tax to increase rent.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Madam Clerk, that concludes general public comment. What is before this body at this time?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Consider them posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmembers Alarcon, Cardenas, and Rosendahl request to be excused November 14th and 16th. Councilmember Weezer requests to arrive at 10:45 on November 14th. Councilmember Perry requests to leave at 11:30 on November 16th, and Councilmember Reyes requests to leave at 12 p.m. on November 14th.
Okay, without objection. Next.
That clears the desk.
Okay, announcements, members. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick thank you to all of the city family for putting together the first City of Los Angeles Veterans Appreciation Festival in front of the USS Iowa last Saturday. Over 3,000 people. A great event to honor our vets and their families. I want to thank the mayor and Mr. Garcetti for joining me in recognizing our veterans on Saturday, and the city family, all the staff who put this incredible event together, specifically those veterans groups, veterans resources groups who came forward from all levels of government. So many thanks.
Mr. Labange.
And thanks again for everybody participating in our Memorial Day service. Ms. Perry was there, as well as Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Garcetti at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. And the greatest thing, Mr. President, is all the veterans were there, and when they played the the various songs for the branches of services. They stood up, and it was a great, great hand. Additionally, Mr. President, you'll be pleased to know at Wilshire and Detroit Street, just west of La Brea, today at 1:30, Mayor Villaraigosa and members of the MTA, as long as myself as the district council, will break ground on utility relocation for the coming of the West Side Subway. Long overdue. Thank you to the voters of Los Angeles and for all as we move forward in traffic improvement.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Perry, you have an announcement?
Yes, I just want to announce that today is the first official day of Diwali, and we celebrated or began to observe it the other day in council. And I just wanted to wish those who celebrate this holiday happy Diwali.
Thank you. Any further announcements? Mr. Rosendahl.
Excuse for tomorrow, but I obviously consider the waste holder issue serious, so assuming I'm able to, I will come in for that issue as well.
Okay, well, you've been phenomenal in coming in when the council needs you, so that would be appreciated by all of us. And if you could also make sure that you put next Tuesday on your calendar as well.
Great. Look forward.
Okay, Mr. Labange.
Commerce, Trade, Tourism, and Commerce will start at 2:15 this afternoon, 2:15.
Okay, with that said, could all individuals, members included, in the council chambers, please rise? Adjourning motions, members, will start with Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you very much, and I apologize to the family of Henry Coleman that I'm not standing, but I believe strongly in who he is and what he did, and he's passed. We're mourning the passing of Henry Coleman, a longtime resident of the Venice Canals. Henry died last Wednesday, November 7th, of natural causes at the age of 89. Henry was instrumental in helping to restore the Venice Canals and was once president of the Venice Canal Association. He has lived in Venice for over 30 years and enjoyed participating in all events, sights, sounds that the community had to offer. Henry has a long career in television industry, beginning in New York, where he worked on live television programs such as Robert Montgomery Presents and Kraft Television Theater. He followed the industry to Los Angeles in 1961, where he became associate producer of Dr. Kildare and then Peyton Place. Henry worked his way up the ladder and became executive producer for CBS, supervising such shows as The Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and Lucy. In 1970, Henry became vice president of the television programming at Paramount, overseeing production of such shows as The Odd Couple, Love American Style. He then held the same VP position of the Screen Gems, where he met his wife, Donna Bernard. Henry was most known and respected as the producer of the Love Boat and Hotel series over a span of 10 years. He was also a longtime member of the Writers Guild of America and wrote many episodes for the Love Boat. Henry was born and raised in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He served in the Army Air Corps as a navigator on a B-29 during World War II. He earned a BA degree in dramatic arts from Columbia University in New York. He spent summers acting with Virginia Barter Theater Company. He had a zest for life and living and loved people, dogs, traveling, cars, music, art, and most of all, the beach. He's survived by his loving and devoted wife, Donna Bernard, his daughter Kathy, his son Richard, and his sister Heidi. May he rest in peace.
Ms. Perry, do you have a...
Yes, I would like to just do a short presentation and then do a more extensive one tomorrow or the next day. Wilbur Wu, the father of Michael Wu, died last night at the age of 96 years old. He was the former vice chairman and executive vice president of Cathay Bank, former president of Chungking Produce Company, former national grand president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. He was married to Beth Wu for 75 years, and funeral arrangements are pending.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
He was a great man and very proud of his son.
Yes, he was.
Mr. President, I ask we adjourn in memory of Darrell Royal, the great Texas football coach who was very successful, and also adjourn in memory of Milton Campbell. In 1956, he was the first African American to win the decathlon in the Olympic Games in Melbourne, and just a phenomenal history. played for the Cleveland Browns, Milt Campbell. Lastly, Tom Francis. In college, you had to take Music Appreciation 101. And you wouldn't think I'd listen to KFAC, but it was classical music. And Tom Francis had a program, and you learned about classical music. He lived the great age of 95, survived by many family and friends. So those are three great people we want to remember on this day.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Yes, I just wanted to also give my condolences to the Wu family. Chinatown is in the 1st District, and there are many leaders there. Mr. Wu was one of the most influential 20 years ago in making sure that Chinatown got what it needed for its services, and did it very quietly. He was a gentleman, a great diplomat, was able to help us in many of the challenges that we've had in Chinatown for the past 20 years as a deputy and as a council member. And I will miss him. And again, my condolences to the Wu family.
Yeah, I concur with that. He was a great man. In the late 1980s, I had the opportunity to go to Taiwan with him and his son and Councilman Holden, and it was a magnificent trip that we had. Ironically, the president of Taiwan at the time passed away, and based on Mr. Wu's connections, he saw that we had special, escorts to get us to and from various places, and he also took us to their equivalent of the White House, where we represented the city of Los Angeles in signing was Mr. Ferraro on that trip as well? And Mr. Ferraro and Councilman Holden signed a document representing the city. He will be missed. Sister city, yeah. Any other adjournments? Okay, members, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for today.